second-place prizes. Choir conductor Jan-Erik Swart.
My challenge is now to reach out to all communities and to get funding for them to be able to afford the training that they get in the choir. So that's my next objective, because I'd like to take a fully African program even with an African conductor to perform overseas because they just love it, and that's what we want to do.
US President Donald Trump says he's not happy with the way Israel has handled Lebanon. He's told reporters at the G7 summit in France that the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, needed to be responsible. He said he told Israel he was unhappy that it attacked Lebanon's capital, Beirut, hours before Iran and the US signed an agreement to end the war.
I've had a great relationship with Bibi, but now Bibi has to be more responsible with respect to Lebanon. Lebanon used to be a great country. It was a country where you had professors, doctors, lawyers. The great intellect was in Lebanon. Now it's terrible. I would say of all countries, they've been treated the worst.
The top story, the body of a 21-year-old man who went missing following a car crash in the Crocodile River in Mbombela in Mpumalanga has now been found. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Host.
And coming up in U Sports this hour, France to kick off their World Cup campaign against tricky Senegal. Crinum celebrate 2026 Telkom Netball League title, and Serena Williams to play doubles with sister Venus at Wimbledon. I'll have more on this and other sports stories at 3:30.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, it's today we celebrate Youth Day. Is it a case of celebrate, commemorate, or in fact challenge each other on this National Youth Day 2026? I think it's an important question to ask, isn't it? Because one thing is reflecting on what happened on June 16th, 1976, and it's important to do just that. But it's another thing where you only dwell on what happened then, and you don't take the lessons learnt from then to now. And for me, I think the lessons learnt are critically important. So perhaps the big question to ask you now, we all know why the youth from schools of 1976 took to the streets to protest at that time against the apartheid South African government. The question now is, what's the big challenge now? And I thought I'd just put this to you. I tweeted about it. I said, what should the elders do? We, the elders, what should we do for the youth of South Africa? Well, my thought is to invest in their journeys. We should use Youth Day and the next 365 days that follow to really talk to them, have one-on-one conversations with them. In fact, talk with them as well. Find out what drives them, gives them direction, and if they need, provide them with the tools and the opportunities for them to fulfill their fullest potential. Make connections for them, open doors for them, create the spaces for them to book a seat at the table of their choice. And then be willing to learn from them, as our youth are our future and our youth are our present too. I mean, that's just my thoughts, and I wonder what you think about the role of older people, older South Africans in dealing with the youth. That's what older South Africans ought to be doing with the youth. Invest in them and understand that they are the future and the present. On the other hand, to the youth of South Africa, it's a good question to you. If the cause of June 16, 1976 was essentially about education and the denial and the handicap of education in terms of how it was taught in the Afrikaans language, what then is the big challenge you are facing today? So you could be a young person listening in and you can tell me what for you is the biggest challenge the youth of South Africa face today. Or you could be an older person, but you know what are the biggest challenges the youth of our country are facing today. So either way, let me know. Give it a shout out. Let's talk about it. To call in live, 086 000 2032. WhatsApp, text or voice note 0614 104 107. And you know the story. You can tweet anytime. Hashtag the National Pulse. When you do that, tag SAfmRadio and tag me, Ashraf Garda. In fact, do the same thing on Facebook too, right? So first things first, we'll reflect on some of the lessons from June 16th, 1976. This year marks 50 years. Can you believe it? 50 incredible years since that moment, history-making moment in South Africa. We'll talk about that next.
We asked rugby legend Francois Steyn what he thinks of the all-new Toyota BZ4X. France, would you say the BZ4X is a rugged all-wheel drive SUV?
Yeah,
Cool. Was the acceleration and handling good?
yeah.
All right. So you think the BZ4X can handle South Africa?
Wat denk jy?
Well, there you have it. The all-new Toyota BZ4X, an all-wheel drive battery electric SUV made to handle South Africa. The BZ4X. It just got real.
Oh, yebo. Klap Soweto. Yebo Fit Point Show. In 1976, youth switcher on, and for 50 years the nation has watched as the story unfolds. And namhlanje, courage looks the same and different. It looks like showing up when no one believes in you. It's about finding the strength to stand up again. The courage of 1976 is appealing in 2026. SAPC 1, Mzansi for sure. The source of youth courage. My God.
Babe, I'm getting extra cash from my insurance. I was thinking romantic getaway or a treat for the kids.
You're getting money from your insurer?
Yes, my cash back from my way. I'll get back 10% of my monthly premiums for staying claim-free for 2 years. I'm getting 5,680 Rand.
Now that's real cash.
Real people, real cars, real rewards. For a quote, visit myway.co.za. My cashback is a feature on qualifying products paid after 2 claim-free years and all premiums paid. Premiums are risk profile dependent. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply. My Way. Live your way. Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, so let's talk about the biggest issues that affects us on the National Pulse. What for you drives the conversations that we need to be having right now? And I've given you some thoughts, but I'd welcome you coming up with your own opinions on what for you you'd like to talk about. So what is it you'd like to talk about? So I'll put this to you right away again, because I just want you to respond to this one. The youth are not just our future, but they are our present as well. So how are we investing in our youth? And for the youth of South Africa right now, what for you are the single biggest challenge or challenges you are facing right now? Let's hear it here on the National Pulse. Okay, first things first then, we chat to Dr. Asanda Fotoye, who is a senior lecturer at the Wits School of Governance. Dr. Fotoye, appreciate you connecting with us on the National Pulse.
Afternoon, Ashraf, and afternoon to listeners.
Thank you. We talked to you at a time where I understand, the Wits School of Governance had a very important coming together of people a few days ago, in fact, reflecting on just that, right? 50 years since 16th of June, 1976.
Yes. So we had a seminar on Friday, focusing on the 50 years since the, Soweto uprising. And also, we're commemorating the 20th anniversary of the adoption of the African Youth Charter.
How then, when you have a seminar like that, I mean, how do you plan for that in terms of, people coming together, but you also want to have some very clear, desired, measurable outcomes, don't you?
Yes, most definitely, because, young people are saying that they're tired of just talking for the sake of talking. So what's happening is that we have a 3-year project, so between the Wits School of Governance and the South African Youth Council, which is a non-partisan, structure representing youth, throughout the country. So the seminar was just our first deliverable. Next year we're having a conference, and then thereafter we want to then publish an edited book volume. So if you look at the speakers that we brought together, there's a lot of thinking that went into it. It's people, young people who are activists in various sectors, of the youth field, and championing different, ideas. We had also an intergenerational dialogue. So we had a historian, Professor Ndlovu, who had a dialogue with Unsi Kamzananda, which was very interesting. So we didn't just want to hear from, people who were youth in 1976. We also then wanted to have our youth, the people who are young people in 2026, responding to what Professor Ndlovu had to say. And then we also had a panel, very interesting panel, with the Wits, SRC president. We had Osenzo, who is championing for disabled young people. And we also had, Uanele, who is with the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, representing, the youth.
Yeah, let's then talk about, you may have heard my intro, and I said, we all know what happened June 16, 1976, and there were very specific challenges, and there were groups of people who felt it warranted them going to the streets of Soweto at the time, right? What for you then are the biggest challenges the youth of South Africa face right now?
So, they saying that it's unemployment, right? And we know that, unemployment is sitting at 45.8% as of quarter one of 2006. And this has risen from 32% in 2008. So that's the biggest challenge. And everything, a lot of things then emanate from that. Because if young people are not employed, they're sitting at home, they're frustrated, then it, also comes with issues of mental health. It also then comes with issues of, young people now finding themselves being victims or perpetrators of GBV. It also comes with issues of young people trying to find other ways of getting, income, ways that might not necessarily be legal, like criminal. We also find, young people, abusing alcohol and other substances like drugs. So, they're saying that, unemployment is the biggest issue, and if the government does not deal with that, then, we're still going to be seeing more young people who are angry, more young people who seem not interested to participate in the economy or to participate in, in other government structures like voting. So, yeah.
Yeah. So if unemployment, and I think there's no question that, whether it's the biggest or not, it is certainly the most devastating of the biggest challenges facing South African youth today. In fact, it's the biggest challenge facing South Africa because it impacts every one of us, right? Do you get a sense, therefore, then, what should the youth of South Africa be doing to turn that unemployment chalice around, and what should the country generally be doing about it? If I use the example of June 1676, where there was a challenge and they met the challenge head on, what should they be doing now around unemployment?
To be honest with you, young people in different structures have been trying to, speak to government. Like I said, we're working together with the South African Youth Council, and they've indicated that they have been trying to engage government, trying to have those talks with government. But they do indicate that, if government is not listening or, taking long to implement their promises, then it's a ticking time bomb. And it's really, the youth of 1976, they were facing a different type of government, a government that was brutal, a government that was, unapologetic in terms of what the oppression of black people, and also trying to impose Afrikaans as a medium of language in schools. So I think they also then, they responded in the way that was militant and taken to the streets. So our young people are saying that, we've been trying to have that civil, talk with government. But if it comes to a point that we need to be militant and take to the streets, the issues that we're raising might actually push us to that point. And then the question of what must young people be doing to address the issues of unemployment? For me, it's twofold. So yes, we encourage young people to be entrepreneurs and not wait for employment. But at the same time, for example, if you look at the NYDA flagship program that is meant to support young people who are entrepreneurs, yes, we have found that it does work because of the ecosystem that it has. However, it's only supporting less than 0.5% of young people who are entrepreneurs. So it's one thing to encourage young people to be entrepreneurs, but if they're not getting the support, right, it's not going to go far.
Yeah. So should they be more militant? The one difference between now and then was they were opposing a leadership that was entrenched in apartheid South Africa, illegitimate leadership. At this point in time, you can question whether government does its job well, but it's not an illegitimate government.
Yes, and I think that's why young people are, have been patient in trying to engage government, in a civil manner. But I think we all know that, and it's been said before, that the issue of unemployment is a ticking time bomb. There will come a time where young people will not want to have the talks anymore. They will take to the streets, and it's going to affect all of us.
Yeah. So what then, you may have heard in my intro, I've talked about investing in young people. I don't mean just jobs. I mean, having those one-on-one conversations with them, giving them an opportunity of understanding what they want and in fact, listening to them as well. And then linked to that, making this clear distinction that young people are not just the future, but the present. Do you agree with that? And if so, how does that then play out in our daily lives?
I absolutely agree with that. And it plays out in the sense that, we should actually be engaging young people in the policies that we're making, in the research that we're doing, and by the Wits School of Government partnering with the South African Youth Council, that we're trying to actually say, let's not, talk to the youth, let's actually talk with the youth and try to engage and find ways to solve the issues together with the youth.
Yeah, very true. What then, if we then look at the challenges of South Africa now compared to other countries faced with similar problems, are there lessons we can draw from them now?
To be honest with you, if you look into the continent, number one, the rest of the continent is facing similar problems to South Africa. For example, if you look at unemployment in Africa, youth unemployment in Africa is 43%, which is pretty much close to the 45% that we are seeing in South Africa. And if you go then beyond the continent, so I did a study last year looking specifically on youth entrepreneurship to see if there's any similarities or lessons that South Africa could learn from your OECD countries to try to push and support young people, for example, in entrepreneurship. And you actually find that it's actually similar. There's so many similarities than differences. So hence, in our seminar, we did not just look or reflect on the June 1976. We then also wanted to reflect on the African Youth Charter, to try to understand if it has translated into meaningful opportunities.
Well, let me ask you about that, and I'll do that right after this.
Yo, how is your trolley so full these days, friend? It's my way, Jomi. I save up to 40% on my car insurance premiums every month.
My way insurance?
Yes! Now I have more money back in my pocket, even though hubby switched to my way. Manja, we're both saving, which means we have more money to focus on the things we love and live our way.
Savings after savings.
Real people, real cars, real savings. For a quote, visit myway.co.za. Premiums are risk profile dependent. MyWay is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply. MyWay. Live your way.
Lava breaks through once more.
They are relentless in their pursuit of a maiden World Cup title. They are carried by the nation, and they are unbreakable. Get behind Laura Wolfhard and her team as they compete in the 2026 ICC Women's T20 World Cup in England and Wales from 12 June to 15 July. Watch Shabneen Ismail, Marizan Cup, Ayabonga Kaka and company raise the game to new heights. Find out all you need to know at cricket.coza.
Magic. Mavis, I wonder if I should sell my car. I'm not sure where to go.
Wanna sell your car, but don't know what to do. You don't have to go far, we come to you. If you're rolling on a 1.5 or a Lacquer 2.2, doesn't matter what you drive, we buy cars once you.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Right, we're going to just conclude our conversation now with Dr. Asanda Fotoyi. Now, you made the point about the African Union and youth activism within that, right? Tell me about that. How does this square in with the AU and their plans for the youth of South Africa and the continent?
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay. Dr. Asanda, do I have you there?
Yes.
Yes. I was saying about the AU, yes. I mean, from the AU youth program's point of view, how do you then square in with that challenge and how they can integrate South Africa's problems and others too?
So the African Youth Charter, it covers all of us in the continent, and that's why it was important for us to also reflect on it. So we put it to our panelists, our youth activists. How do they feel about it? Has it been working for them? First of all, I think it's also similar to some of the policies that that have been adopted in South Africa, where young people are saying, these frameworks, as much as they're saying that they're meant to empower and develop us and try to, get us as young people to be active participants in our economies and in our countries. Largely, they are, number one, good on paper. But number two, most of them were drafted, including the African Youth Charter. A huge chunk of it was drafted without consultation or young people being involved. And number three, most importantly, it hasn't realized the promises that it envisioned in 2006. For example, if we are sitting at 43% of young people across the continent who are unemployed, that tells us that we have young people who don't have money to buy food, who don't have money to buy clothing, who don't have money to get their own shelter. You have young people who become dependent, and you have young people who then might resort to other means that are maybe illegal to try to get just something to eat before they go to
And maybe the big challenge, there needs to be a new way of doing things. We can't continue doing it as we've been doing all this time. Appreciate your time, Dr. Asanda Fortoyi, the senior lecturer at the Wits School of Governance. They had a seminar about it around June 16th a few days ago. We'll get your reaction as well, but we'll get an ANC response on the 50th commemoration of June 16th after this.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Right, here's some good news, right? The Drakensberg return. They return to the Mandela stage at Joburg Theatre with the Drakensberg Boys Choir Music in the City 2026. It starts tomorrow, in fact, up to the 20th of June. So this weekend coming up, right? The 4-day musical showcase promises a vibrant, genre-spanning celebration of community, heritage, and global musical exchange. So Wednesday and Thursday night, some of Gauteng's best school choirs join the Drakensberg on stage. And on Friday, the 19th, the internationally acclaimed Minnesota Boys Choir from the USA, as well as the UJ Choir, join the Drakensberg for a special global collaboration of community and heritage. The Drakensberg Boys Choir Gala Concert, Saturday the 20th of June, promises to be a spectacular closing to the festival, showcasing the true artistry of the young musical ambassadors of South Africa. The big question to you is, would you be attending? You should say yes. Book now. And here's the website, www.dbchoir.com. dbchoir.com. And then tickets, as you know, understandably selling fast.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, so of course, governments having its own commemoration. There's political parties doing the same as well. Other activist groups as well. We'll chat to Irfan Mangera coming up later on. But for now, let's continue talking about June 16th and get the perspective from the ANC with their acting national spokesperson, Nonqeba Mhlawuli. Nonqeba, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon. Happy Youth Day to you and all the listeners of SAFM.
Much appreciated. I think, how would you, from an ANC perspective, you've issued a statement, I see. What for you would be the biggest takeout today using Youth Day as a catalyst for something more?
So I think first and foremost, the most important part, the significant part rather, about today's commemorations in particular was really the fact that our government decided that it was important that to mark the 50th anniversary of the Soweto uprising, or rather the 1976 uprising, rather, because it wasn't just in Soweto, it was in other townships as well, to take it really back to where it started, with the program having started, of course, at the Peterson Square, and then moving, back to FNB, where thousands of young people came out in their majority. And for me, because I actually was there earlier on today, and just witnessing, young people participating, in the program, being there, visiting the different stalls, some of them in the different political regalias, different parties, young people from different parties displaying, the parties that they come from, but also young people, not just from South Africa, but also from other parts of the continent as well, and even the world, having joined us there today. And for me, it was really, it signified the fact that our young people still view this day as such an important day, not only to observe, but also to take forward the baton.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that were happening today was, an intergenerational baton where the 76 generation actually gave over to the generation of 2026. And that baton was received by the ANC Youth League President, Colin Malachi, and with other parties, with other young people as well, obviously from the other parties. I think there was the DA, the IFP, and so on and so forth as well.
I mean, interesting you give the example of the baton, right? Because, many people, young South Africans today, feel that there can be the symbolical, passing of the baton, the baton, right? But in reality, the young people do not have their fingers on the levers of power, and that could be because of they're unskilled, they're unemployed, they're not in leadership positions, and there's a growing degree of dissatisfaction, and then amplified by the just under 50% unemployed young South Africans. It's a huge issue. How do you respond to that?
So I think in actual fact, it is a fact, Ashraf, that we have achieved so much in the past 32 years. If you just look at the education landscape, the young people of 76 went to the streets and were willing to die for their right to receive an education in the language of their choice. And today, that is the education that I received. I was able to go to a school where I chose to do isiXhosa mother tongue as the language of my choice. I went to university where I was able to take up isiXhosa, for an example, as a subject and as a course. Because of the strides of what would have happened, not only as a result of the actions of the 76 generation, but also the achievements of the democratic government since 1994. If you just look at, the president spoke about the fact that we've actually had the highest throughput of, graduates. Today, we have 4 times more graduates than we did in 1994. So if you just look at the education landscape, what we've been able to achieve in that sector alone is remarkable. Over 5.5 million beneficiaries of the NSFAS program alone. That signifies young people who've been able to have access to education, who come from previously disadvantaged backgrounds, and have been able to change the course of their communities. Of course, to answer your question, the very important part is that while we've achieved so much, and we've seen, the transformation that has taken place in the lives of our people over the past 32 years, there still remains the unresolved question of the 46% of the young people that are currently sitting at home. And if you'd listen to the president, actually also spoke about kind of some of the interventions that government is making to ensure that we get a young person from the street corner who's currently sitting at a street corner, and get that young person into an institution of higher learning, from an institution of higher learning, and also get them then into a job, but not just a job, but also a sustainable job as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, just to end with, therefore, that's the point. If the June 76 generation felt that singularly, there could be 50 other problems, singularly, they had to tackle the issues of education being taught in Afrikaans, which was an alien language to them at the time, then right now, singularly, what's the single biggest issue facing young South Africans? And from an ANC perspective, how do you propose we actually meet that challenge?
So the biggest problem or challenge facing young people right now is, of course, the question of unemployment, youth unemployment in particular. And in actual fact, just to also take advantage of this opportunity, that in my other capacity as a Deputy Minister responsible also for the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, we will be later on this week actually announcing the latest quarter results of that particular program. But really what we have to see, and this is one of the things that the ANC has said we have to focus on this year, it has to be how do we transform the economy so that we don't just transform the economy, so that we have economic growth as we've seen in the last quarter, but we want economic growth that goes with job creation. We don't want jobless growth. We want economic growth so that when we say that the economy has grown by 0.5% or 1%, that can't translate into job losses in the same quarter.
Yes. So what then would be what then would be the ANC's plan to turn from jobless youth to youth with job, from unemployment to employment?
So part of the ERRP, which is the Economic Recovery and Reconstruction Plan, which was a policy of the ANC that was adopted by government. Part of those interventions that we are currently seeing in government, the president, for example, announced, the interventions insofar as supporting small youth, SMEs that are owned by young people. We've seen the interventions in the NYDA where, there's currently a call to create 100,000 work earning opportunities for young people. But more than that, we've also seen, the YES program, very successful, in partnership with government, private sector-led initiatives, and all of those initiatives that have been very successful, that have been proven to really been able to, change the scale, or tip the scale, rather, insofar as youth unemployment is concerned. All of those do come from what would have been the ANC's policy on ensuring that we transform the economy, we grow the economy, but we also then ensure that we create sustainable jobs, particularly for our young people.
Well, I think that's the big challenge, and not just from the ANC, but all the political parties and all that make up what is called government and outside. It's critical we get that right. Nonteba, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse on this day, and we welcome reaction based on that conversation with the acting national spokesperson for the ANC, Nonteba Mdluli, but also the previous chat we had with Dr. Asanda Fatoi, but also your general thoughts that if June 16, 1976, the biggest challenge at that moment in time, there were 100, but the biggest challenge was dealing with the medium of instruction in black schools, right? What is the biggest challenge that South African youth face right now, and what are they doing to meet that challenge? What is democratic South Africa doing to meet that challenge? Keeping in mind, in 1976, that government was not a democratic government. There's a very, very big difference in that, which means we need to be enablers of that as well. So who's doing what in getting youth on track to realize the future of their dreams? It's critically important. This is the National Pulse.
This is SAfm Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Hey, Tumi, I don't know about you, but 9 o'clock tonight, it's definitely France-Senegal. What else are you going to talk about?
Absolutely, that's what I'm talking about. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, two-time champions France will get their World Cup campaign underway against Senegal in what will be a repeat of the 2002 tournament. Les Bleus are considered favourites, boasting one of the top sides at the World Cup. They have players including the likes of Kylian Mbappe, Ousmane Dembele, and Michael Olise, amongst others. For the Lions of Teranga, they will be competing at the global showpiece without their supporters, as they have not been able to travel to follow their team due to the tight immigration restrictions imposed by co-host the United States. So that is one hurdle that they'll be looking to jump over. But a very interesting match that we're definitely looking forward to this evening. It's going to kick off at 9 p.m. In the meantime, FIFA says that it has found no evidence that one of the referees at the World Cup breached its code of conduct. This is after he was accused of making a white supremacist hand gesture during one of the games. Earlier, FIFA's discrimination monitor at the World Cup called for Evans, who was working as a VAR official in the tournament, to be removed for appearing to make a hand gesture resembling a white supremacist sign. However, according to Evans, he said that the hand gesture was not intentional, nor did he make it to communicate a message, affiliation, game, or belief of any kind. So for him, he is off the hook with regards to that one. In terms of rugby, Stormers fullback Warwick Gelant will line up against his Springbok teammates in Gqeberha on Saturday. This is after accepting an invitation to represent the Barbarians. Gelant, who capped 11 times for South Africa, says that wearing the famous black and white jersey is special and a dream opportunity to play alongside world-class stars such as Scotland's Duan van der Merwe
former All Blacks scrum half TJ Perenara and Wallabies wing Andrew Callaway. Now, the 31-year-old expects a stern test against the world champions, but he insists that the Barbarians are determined to make the contest competitive despite limited preparation. He also praised coach Scott Robinson for their open, creative approach and says that he wants to make his first Barbarians experience very memorable while embracing the team's philosophy of enjoyment and attacking the rugby side. In terms of tennis, Serena Williams will play at Wimbledon for the first time since 2022. This is after the American legend was given a wild card to play the doubles event with her sister Venus. Now, Williams had made a sensational return to tennis last week when she won her first round doubles match at Queen's Club with partner Victoria Mboko. The 44-year-old had not played professional tennis for 4 years after saying that she was evolving away from the sport following the 2022 US Open. So it'll be interesting to see how she and sister Venus are going to do at Wimbledon. That's it from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Okay, perfect. So looking forward to that big game. And by the way, I mean, just the incredible thing that goalkeeper from Cabo Verde, Cape Verde, not that you can measure by social media, but he had 50,000 followers on Instagram yesterday. And because he made 7 point-blank saves, it jumped, from 50,000 to about 5 million overnight. Quite the most incredible leap to fame, if I can call it that, in 90 minutes that I've seen, right? Okay, we can talk about other leaps to fame in terms of South Africa. We'll chat to Irfan Mangera about youth activism in 2026 and beyond. But what about social media and the restrictions that the UK has put in on young people below 16? We'll talk about that next.
Sanmuran, this is Shugela from Amalanga Wafani.
Hi, my name is Sipho Mbele, playing the role of Mahlangu on Amalanga Wafani.
Sanmonani, hello, my name is Zazi Kunene, and I play Untando on the new season of Amalanga Wafani. Catch Amalanga Wafani on SABC 1.
Do yourself a favor, tune in
every weekday at 6:30 p.m. only on SABC 1.
That's for sure.
Guys, we're always posting, commenting, and clapping back. But opinions don't count. It's your ex that does. So come 20 and 21 June, get up, show up, and register to vote. Call 0800 11 8000. Visit elections.org.za or WhatsApp 060 880000 for more info. This message is brought to you by the IEC.
50 years later, Youth Month, the voices.
The wanton destruction of property, the killings, and violent demonstrations are not only totally deplorable, but in the final analysis rebound to nobody's advantage. In a situation of lawlessness and total confusion, even dialogue, which in fact is and should be the origin of redress to genuine grievances, is rendered fruitless.
Different generations, different experiences. One South Africa. 50 years later, only on SAfm, leading the conversations that move us. This is Global Watch on the National Pulse.
Right, so yesterday the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced that he would ban social media use for under 16s, right? And that specific restrictions around gaming and live streaming as well, right? All of that to come into effect around by the time Christmas comes around. What are the lessons we can learn from that? In fact, should we learn any lessons from that at all? Lerato Ntwampe is the social media legal consultant and director of Legal Plug Consulting. Lerato, thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much for having me. Good day.
Thank you. I mean, I know Australia did something similar. Now it's the UK.
Yeah.
How many other countries, first up, have done that, where they put a clamp on the use of social media for young people below the age of 16?
There's still quite a few countries that are still in the process of trying to implement a social media ban. Some of the countries, like China, for example, they've banned it completely, so you don't even have access to it. It's not just for kids under the age of 16, it's everyone. Countries like New Zealand, France, Germany, Denmark, they're also in the process of just trying to get I think a holistic view, because a ban like this is not something that you really take lightly. Unfortunately, because of privacy laws, it means that, for example, for age verification or age assurance purposes, it means that would apply to everybody. So not just, the kids that are under 16, but I, as Lerato, who's, 30 plus, would also have to hand in some sort of ID, digital ID, birth certificate, or an ID copy or passport to actually also prove that I'm not at the age of 60, under the age of 16.
Okay,
so
I get what you're saying. It's for everyone then to use it. You have to be over 16 anyway, right?
Yeah.
But let's go back to the reasons. Why the clampdown? Why no under 16s using social media in some countries?
I think, the content, that is very harmful to children. We've seen over the years kids being exposed to pornography, content that encourages and promotes or provides, instructions for either self-harm, eating disorders, suicide. There's also stuff like bullying, abusive and hateful content, as well as, things like child sexual abuse material. And those are, stuff that is in, the illegal realm now. Extreme sexual violence, extreme pornography, different, stuff like inciting of violence. So all of these things that are promoting or facilitating suicide have had an impact. Also, there's a psychological impact where kids are now glued on their phones. They have no social skills. They can't play with other children because they're all on the devices. And in most instances, sometimes they are unfortunately chatting to strangers, potential groomers, and preying on predators. And I think the one criticism that I do have for this UK ban is the fact that, platforms like Discord, which is like a WhatsApp for gamers, as well as Roblox, messaging apps, Pinterest as well, is not included. So there are other apps that are very, very problematic to children that were not included in the list of the platforms that are banned.
All right. And some of the specifics that, you said some things not included, some of the specifics made by the British PM, anything surprise you there?
I think I did like the fact that there is going to be like a switch off. So I don't know, well, you're probably old enough to remember this, but remember in Mnet, there was a time where if you didn't have a subscription, it would sort of go off. So they are also introducing that to say at a certain time, the social media platform unfortunately would go off to manage screen time so that children are not on their devices, in the night or gaming in the night. So I did specifically do like that sort of implications to say that managing screen time, but there are also other things that I sort of disagree with, especially when it comes to age verification. I think that is going to be a huge concern, and we've seen Australia struggle with that as well.
Is the argument, and you've given some examples about grooming and a whole lot of other things too, right? Are there examples that the harms outweigh the benefits for young people below 16?
I think it's a very it's a balance. I think kids, especially in the South African context, children in our country have freedom of expression. They also have the right to sort of access information. But we also, as South Africa, have an issue with a digital divide. There are areas in South Africa where they don't even have the internet. So to come up with something like a social media ban is now excluding a certain part of people that were already sort of excluded, and they were probably using social media for good, because we do see social media being used for good. I think what needs to happen is that we need to hold social media platforms more accountable. And I think there are definitely ways that we can prioritize child safety without taking or without compromising some of the rights that sort of do exist. And I think that is an approach that South Africa should be taking. And I think in the conversations that, we've had with industry and conversations that we've had with regulators, it seems that they're taking more of a collaborative stance instead of just saying a blanket ban, because the reality is these social media platforms aren't going anywhere, and we need to be able to collaborate, and we need to be able to come up with a strategy that will ensure that children's safety is prioritized online, and that also that we enhance parent support. Unfortunately, in our society, our children know more about devices than we do. So we also need to provide that parent support and also provide digital literacy so that kids understand things like personal information, what it means, things like algorithm, what that means, infinite scrolling. So we need to be able to teach them so that they are actually able to protect themselves online, and that their parents are also able to support
it's a good point. I mean, let's end with this then from a South African perspective. Would you then therefore say you wouldn't support a ban, but you would support, increased governance around what they can and can't do, and even what young people are aware of in terms of their rights and their responsibilities?
Absolutely, and our constitution would never support a ban. There are many legislations, and the constitution itself would never support something like a blanket ban. There are many rights that we need to consider, including the rights of children, and not just freedom of expression, but the rights of children also needs to be taken into account. Rights to privacy need to be taken into account. So I think it would definitely be very difficult in a South African perspective to have a blanket ban.
Let's leave it at that. Lerato Ntwampe, the social media legal consultant, director of Legal Plug Consulting. Appreciate your time. This on the back of the British now putting a ban for young people below 16 in terms of usage of social media. What about South Africa, you may ask?
Catch Top Billing this Youth Day Tuesday evening at 7 as vlogger Snigiwe Sneem Mhlongo finds her mom the best travel companion. Designer Tina Ngokolo marries Xhosa tradition with modern styling. And Geordie and Debbie Osler plant a forest, then build themselves a treehouse of a home. That's Top Billing this Tuesday at 7. Repeat Sunday at 1 on S3 and Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. on SABC1.
Well, Outsurance knows that when it comes to insurance, trust isn't built on clever advertising and promises. It's built on how fairly an insurer pays claims. The Ombudsman, an independent body that rules on complaints, confirmed that in their 2025 annual report, that Outsurance had the lowest overturned ratio of complaints received. So make today the day you switch to Outsurance, where you always get something out. You can call 086 00 60 000 or visit outsurance.co.za today. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's and information available online.
50 years later, Youth Month, the Voices.
This morning very early I had the privilege of flying across Soweto in one of the helicopters. I may say that practically every one of our offices have been burnt, with the exception of 2 or 3. Our bottle stores and beer halls have been wrecked and, of course, robbed. There were still cars and buildings with smoke coming out of it. I could say that there are about 120 damaged vehicles or burnt vehicles that have been turned over.
The students of the Witwatersrand University at a protest meeting with very revolutionary slogans. And I want to appeal to the rioters in Soweto and to the students of the Witwatersrand University to desist from doing this sort of thing.
Different generations, different experiences. One South Africa, 50 years later, only on SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The big issue on the National Pulse.
Well, the big issue all week has been the issue of youth activism, completely understandable because alignments to June 16th, 1976. Well, 50 years later, I can think of hundreds of issues that the youth of South Africa are grappling with, and they don't seem to get the right solution. So what ought they be doing right now? With me is Irfan Mangera, who's the head of education at We the People. Irfan, appreciate you joining us on the National Pulse.
Thanks for having me, Uncle Ashraf.
Thank you. Let's talk then about for you now, right? And I made the example earlier on about the big issue at that time was, being taught in a language foreign to their culture and how difficult that was, right? What for you is the single biggest issue that the youth of South Africa face right now?
I think what we're fighting against largely is structural inequality that looks and in the form of economic disparity. And the way I'd frame that is the offshoots are unemployment at the highest scales ever. We've had deepening crisis of poverty, of people not being able to break that cycle as a result of not having some economic means to get out of that space. And then all the resultant effects of violence and so on stem from that social and economic problem that we faced.
All right. So having identified that, and you're not the only person doing that, right? What form of activism should the youth undertake to meet those challenges if we draw on the example of what happened in 1976?
See, Uncle Ashraf, I just got back from the passing of the Baton March we did with Ntate Seth Mazibuko and others. And the symbolic handover of that baton was to recognize that the issues are very different, but also fundamentally it's as a carrying on of the same type of struggle against exclusion, the struggle against and so for this present day 26, we look at operating within a constitutional democracy and a framework that young people do have the right to organize and protest, but we do so in very disjointedly. And one of the key messages coming out from this march was we have to organize. We have to organize and we have to organize. And that means taking seriously our right to vote for the leaders that we want and stop abstaining from the vote. It also means being more precise in how we hold leaders accountable. No longer will we fill stadiums for political parties or join their marches until they have a sense of we will actually account to you for what your issues are. And until that time, we're gonna keep seeing the growth of this exclusionary politic, this exclusionary behavior, because parties do not want to respond to unregistered voters. So we have to change the dynamic, and we have to organize ourselves to build a new power base of young, progressively minded people who can love the Constitution.
And just to be clear then, we are talking in general, right? Do the youth of South Africa understand their problems, but do not see the solution to their problems through political parties, and therefore the elections stay away, or do they see it elsewhere?
I think it's a mix. There are those who do see it. I would guard against saying that young people are apathetic, but they are organizing against different struggles every day. It's no brainer that we're the protest capital of the world, is because young people are organizing against unemployment, violence in their communities, GBV. You're seeing education protests of access. So there's no shortage of young people's activism within our body politic. What we have is the disjointedness to which we're organizing together in a form that says we need to structurally change the way this economy works. And the Fees Must Fall generation gave us a snippet of post-democratic young people coming together to force the system to start listening. And I think that moment is one I reference a lot because it really shook the infrastructure of the state, of the civil society, who often disregarded that struggle of access to universities. Today, we have to start uniting on that same basis because there are youth organizations leading in communities, dealing with service delivery problems, dealing with open and raw sewage, of environmental and climate crisis. What we need to start seeing better is this ability to put ego aside and organize collectively for common good.
Just to be clear, so we're on the same page on this one, should they then, notwithstanding what we said before, should they then be organizing themselves through political parties or outside political parties?
I think there's the measures are both because you can't exclude the one and the other. The reason why we'd see parties not take young people seriously is because that demographic is not registered to vote. And then parties end up spending their campaigns and manifesto focuses on people who are registered. What we need to do is create a bigger power base externally, but to also have young people within parties who can represent that voice of young people. And so that power block outside of parties creates enough of an avenue to hold those parties accountable should they decide to do differently. So I don't think it's an either or. I think we have to do both at the same time, recognizing that the one holds accountable, and you can remove that. You almost lending your support, and when you lend your support, within 5 years, if you don't deliver, young people will shift that support to somebody else. I think it's also a changing of the maturity of what democratic outcomes we fought for and are operating under versus the 76 generation who didn't have that kind of constitutional state in which they had some of these rights protected.
Absolutely. They were opposing an apartheid state, completely different situation, right? But therefore, now draw on the example of Fees Must Fall that you've alluded to earlier on, right? That my understanding from the outside is that it was able to straddle different political and philosophical persuasions within the broader scheme of Fees Must Fall. Are we in any way able to do that right now? That means young people operating A, within party political structures on the one hand, but B, outside, but united outside by a common theme, irrespective of what their ideological bents and differences are.
I don't think we have that yet. I think a lot of us are trying to steer us in a direction where we can. And the lesson is we have a common enemy. We have to start building a common identity that despite ideological differences or despite the kind of colors of T-shirt we wear, at fundamental levels, we have to start restructuring society so that it's more equal. We cannot keep hosting more talk shops and programs where we just simply hear the same things. And you'd find, Uncle Ashraf, if you looked and monitored today's events, a lot less young people participating in the official events because they have lost trust and faith in those institutions to deliver. Yeah. So what we need to do is recreate that trust, rebuild that trust, but to do so in an organized manner that allows for young people to democratically let their voice be heard. And so for us, it's unfinished work. It's a generation of 96, 76, of the 80s and of Fees Must Fall handing us this constitutional democracy and saying we need to rethink the way it delivers.
Well, you certainly that got us thinking. We're on to news, so one quick 30-second answer. You spoke about a common enemy. Just to be clear, who for you is the common enemy? Short answer.
I think it's structural inequality, and that mets itself out in the failure of our government to deliver and its continuous approach to using the wrong policies, the wrong people to lead us. And I think, therefore, that for me is my common enemy. Okay. It's not a person, it's a collective of failures of governance, but also of the structural challenges that we face.
Of course, we'd wonder what will be the antibiotic to that, but that's another conversation. Irfan Mangera, Head of Education at We the People, much appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. Let's get the news. It's just going 4 o'clock. Here's Greg Hurst.
Thank you, Ashraf. Malema slams Ramaphosa in Youth Day address and body of missing man found in Mpumalanga. Good afternoon. The EFF leader Julius Malema says President Cyril Ramaphosa has brought disgrace upon the presidency through the Phala Phala scandal. The president has filed an urgent application in the Western Cape High Court to interdict Parliament's impeachment committee from beginning its inquiry into the theft at his Phala Phala farm in 2020. The matter is set to be heard next month. Malema addressed party supporters at the EFF's June 16th rally at the Union Buildings in Pretoria.
Ramaphosa has brought a shame into the Union Building. The ANC has brought a shame into the Union Building. They must leave, and they must leave now. We are in Parliament, in the impeachment committee. We are going to remove Ramaphosa. He went to court to try and stop that process. The EFF applied to join. The court said join. When he tried to interdict, we oppose. We are going to court again with him. He will never stop that process.
The Limpopo Premier, Poppy Ramathuba, has pledged to strengthen the provincial government's efforts to tackle the high rate of unemployment in the province. She addressed hundreds of young people at the Provincial Youth Day celebrations outside Zanin.
They should be able to tell me that when are we taking the first group of those students who are going to be trained on the mining skills. That is the directive. I am not going to apologize. If that is not being delivered, let's start to look for other deployments. Because if we don't win on that, we are not going to win on the creating of jobs for young people. So we are expecting that academy to function.
The body of a 21-year-old man who went missing following a car crash in the Crocodile River in Mbombela in Mpumalanga has now been found. He went missing after the vehicle he was travelling in failed to stop at an intersection and plunged into the river. 2 others who were in the vehicle with him were found on the same day. The head of the provincial search and rescue team, Johan Potgieter.
We started this morning as usual. We put out the drones to search the river and to see if they can't find anything. Then, as we've done from the start, there are certain sections where the drones can't see under the trees and under the reeds. So the river breaks up and it makes islands. So what we did is now, every time the drone pilots came back and they told us, remember this section we can't see under the trees, we'd go in and we'd swim those sections. We searched the island where they couldn't see this morning, and while we were searching that island, we managed to find him. He was stuck under a tree in the water.
A dedicated court has been set up at the Durban Magistrates Court to deal with more than 1,800 cases of transgressions of the Immigration Act among Malawian nationals who've gathered at the Sherwood Hall in the city to be repatriated. Thousands of people have flocked to the hall amid heightened tensions over undocumented foreign nationals. Spokesperson for the Department of Home Affairs, Thulani Mavus.
The department is committed to ensuring that all processes are conducted lawfully, fairly, and in accordance with our constitution. The rights of affected individuals, including the right to procedural fairness and access to legal representation, will be upheld throughout the process. Through the fair and consistent enforcement of South African immigration laws, the department will continue to uphold the rule of law and safeguard the integrity of the country's immigration systems.
The head of the African Union's Public Health Agency, Jean Cassia, has warned about the increase in Ebola cases in the DRC. He's appealed for leaders to improve access for health teams in the region.
We need our leaders to give us access to this region and to assess what is going on and what we can do to stop this outbreak. We don't want to see North Kivu starting to spread the outbreak to other provinces and other countries.
The top story, the EFF leader Julius Malema says President Ramaphosa has brought disgrace upon the presidency through the Pala Pala scandal. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khoz.
In sports this hour, Muswahle Sam celebrates or hails the Crinums after winning the 2026 Telkom Netball League title. DR Congo ready for historic World Cup return, and Reinaga admits to nerves in World Cup debut. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. It's the back end of a long weekend, so it's worth tracking those long-distance routes back home after a little break. Looks generally okay coming out of Polokwane down through Pretoria, the N1 route. There's no real major problems on that route, and even the volume's a little bit lighter than what we might be expecting. There's some problems out in Mpumalanga on the N4, queuing traffic between Belfast and Vanderfontein. There's some roadworks here as you head through towards the Middelburg area, and that section of the N4 on your way back to Gauteng is very slow. Let's catch up today with the N3 up around Moy River. We even saw delays yesterday because of returning Comrades traffic after the weekend. There's just a single lane section open for motorists between Nottingham Road and Moy River, and it's quite heavy. You've got that sort of extra long weekend traffic in there today into that single lane section, plus all the trucks. If you're on your way up to Moy River, it is a heavy one. And then Cape Town looking pretty good. If you've been in the city centre, you're turning around coming back home today. Looks fine. Your holiday route's not too bad. The N2, Crabo through Somerset West looking fine. The N1, no real backlogs at Huguenot Tunnel. That route through to Pyle looking okay. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, looking forward to engaging you. We need to get reaction from you on the conversations we've just had with Irfan Mangera, and then before that, Dr. Asanda Fotoya, as well as the spokesperson from the ANC, amongst many others, in the light of us commemorating June 16th, 1976, and as you've heard from others, the passing of the baton from the older to the younger. The question is, if that is the case, then what is the big challenge young South Africans are facing today, and how are they meeting that challenge? As you've heard Irfan Mangera, well, many others talking about inequality. He speaks about equality and unemployment is an offshoot of that, but structural inequality is number one. Do you agree with that? How then do we dismantle structural inequality but still ensure that the country is actually sailing? I mean, that's an important point to consider. We'll chat about the court setting aside the Mangaung takeover coming up just now. But next up, we'll talk about an ongoing issue, and that is regarding the Gauteng Health Department now being ordered to give News 24 files linked to that Tembisa hospital heist. We'll get thoughts on that right after this.
Make sure you don't miss out as the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, in collaboration with Classics on Turf, pay tribute to the life and music of Tio Soga in a concert led by Mandisi Yankees with the Renaissance Singers, the Chamber Orchestra of Johannesburg, conducted by Kutlwano Masote. The concert takes place on Saturday, the 20th of June, 7 p.m. at the Wits Great Hall. Tickets are available from web tickets at 300 Rand each. Honoring the legacy of Tio Soga, made possible by Webhold and supported by SAFM.
Right, the Drakes return to the Mandela stage at Joburg Theatre with the Drakensberg Boys Choir Music in the City 2026. It happens from tomorrow up to the 20th of June, so this entire week, right? The 4-day musical showcase promises a vibrant, genre-spanning celebration of community, heritage and global musical exchange. On Wednesday and Thursday nights, some of Gauteng's best school choirs join the Drakes on stage. And on Friday, the 19th, the internationally acclaimed Minnesota Boys Choir from the USA, as well as the University of Joburg's choir, joined the Drakes for a special global collaboration of community and heritage. Now, the Drakensberg Boys Choir Gala concert happens on Saturday, the 20th of June. It promises to be a spectacular closing to the festival itself, showcasing the true artistry of the young musical ambassadors of South Africa. The big question to you is, have you booked? Are you going to be there? Book now. Go to the website. It's dbchoir.com. dbchoir.com.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Well, you know, the issue of the Tembisa, the whole issue of the Tembisa hospital heist has been one of the most traumatic stories in the last few years we've had in our country, right? And we do know that News 24 played a huge role in that, specifically Jeff Wicks with his work in terms of investigating. So here's an update on that. The information regulators issued an ultimatum, this happened a few days ago, to the Gauteng Health Department to release records tied to the 2.3 billion rand Tembisa graft scandal. So what does this really mean? Jeff Wicks with us, investigative journalist at News 24. Jeff, good to connect with you once again on the National Pulse.
Likewise, Ashraf. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Why is this significant? Tell me.
It's significant in many ways. Firstly, because it really does highlight the opacity of the Gauteng Health Department and their refusal to relinquish payment records and audit reports, which we have sought under the Promotion of Access to Information Act. And it's key because when we were doing our Tembisa hospital investigation, we uncovered anecdotal evidence that these syndicates were operating at other hospitals. Those were the documents that we've now sought. And the department has been hanging on and fighting tooth and nail for 3 years trying to keep them from us. And now this is finally signifying us getting closer to the end of that road.
And in terms of wanting them to keep it from you, It sounds pretty obvious, but why so?
Well, I think the Tembisa graft scandal is particularly damaging for the Department of Health. And it's not as if this has been the first issue. I mean, we've had Life Esidimeni all the way back to Brian Hlongwa of 2007. So it's a department that's been beset by graft scandals. And I think that they're trying to save face and they just don't want to make things worse, which they certainly are.
Yeah, and of course you've requested it. They've said, no, you had to go to the courts. I mean, how long before you had to make that call?
Well, I mean, we followed prior to the letter. You know, we put in our request. They had 30 days to tell us yes or no, and they ignored it. Then we deemed it an automatic refusal. We appealed. They ignored that appeal. They only came to the table in 2005 after the head of the department at the time, Arnold Malotana, was subpoenaed. And at that stage, we reached a settlement agreement where he was going to disclose the documents, and then that settlement agreement was breached, and that pushed us to the information regulator.
All right. So, in terms of the documents right now, the Gauteng Health Department has been ordered to pass over the files. Have they done so? Is there a time frame when they can do so? When they should do so?
They have until the 23rd to make available the documents. Alternatively, they can take the information regulator's order on High Court review, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens if they're willing to pay taxpayers' rands to private lawyers to try and maintain a veil of secrecy.
What's your expectation? They will take it on review?
I suspect we'll go to court.
What are you expecting? What are you hoping to find in those documents that you don't have hold of right now?
What we will find and what News 24 will report is that syndicates that are taking root at Tembisa Hospital found fertile ground elsewhere. And we'll be able to give people the cut and thrust of exactly how they did it and where they did it.
And for that, you need those documents?
Absolutely. That will be the basis of our evidentiary basis. Bear in mind, they did disclose some documents in terms of a settlement agreement, but we were able to prove that other documents were willfully withheld. So we want everything, and we'll continue to report on this matter for as long as it takes us.
And your point about, willfully withheld, the fact that they refused to give it to you in spite of what has happened already around that issue in the last few years, right? What was their motivation? What did they tell you?
Well, they don't say anything, Ashraf. They simply ignore you and hope that you'll go away. But unfortunately for them, I certainly have the resolve to maintain this fight. We've been in it now for 5 years, and I've got no intention of stepping away from it.
Yeah, let's go back. I mean, I know we're talking about Youth Day today, and June 16th, and what that means. But we talk about structural inequality, and everything that chips away at the edifice of South Africa has an impact on inequality and the structures of our country. So just to go back to recap, so we understand it, what actually happened regarding the Tembisa Hospital and the heist, so that we can fully understand the bigger picture. It's a recap, really.
Well, it's a perfect example of the structural inequality that we have today. What we know is that Babita Deocrane flagged suspicious payments. She was killed less than 3 weeks later. And what we've ended up exposing is that 2.3 billion rand was bled from that hospital through syndicate activity. And that's an affront to every person who uses Tembisa Hospital, who relies on it for the care in the lowest ebb of their lives. Because that 2 billion rand was meant for those people, not for a handful of profiteers to buy Lamborghinis and mansions.
How and in terms of how this is played out in terms of the psyche of two levels: South Africans, citizens, all of us, right, on the one hand, then party political leadership, right, and then three, in the light of the countless investigations that are coming up one after the other. How has that played out according to your understanding?
Well, I think Babita Deocrane has become a symbol for heroism and good civil service. Our reportage has underlined the importance of watchdog journalism, and really what we found ties back to party politics. We've seen that many of the beneficiaries of the Tembisa Hospital graft are unfortunately in close proximity to the ANC, and that's something of a betrayal to the people, Ashraf.
Yeah, let's leave it at that, what that means, betrayal to the people. Jeff Wicks, News 24 investigative journalist, appreciate your time here. A significant ruling coming through now that the information regulator has issued that ultimatum now to the Gauteng Health Department to release records coming up by the end of this month, a couple of weeks to go before they meet that deadline. Much appreciate your time, Jeff, here on the National Pulse.
This June, Youth Month, SAFM brings South Africans together across generations to reflect, challenge, remember, and reimagine the future. From students to struggle veterans, from campus radio to community voices, from 1976 to 2026. This is 50 years later, a month-long national conversation, only on SAfm. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us. You're listening to the National Pulse on SAfm. SAfm.
All right, you're part of the Pulse community, so I need to feel what is it you feel. Let's get to your thoughts.
Hi, Asha. You're speaking with Tulane from Matateni in Newcastle. Asha, to listen Mr. Ramaphosa is just a waste of time, because always he speak one language, don't change his language, or to tell us how many people are getting job. They just want to tell us they lose their job. 46%. It's a crisis. While he's busy using the taxpayers' money to fight his own battle. Thank you.
So, but I mean, he is the president right now. Do you really expect him not to be able to talk? I'm being realistic about it. Do you really expect him not to talk?
Hi, Ashraf. It's Chris here in Campbelltown. Thanks for Irfan for such an articulate description of the many challenges that our young people are facing. And I think the biggest challenge is that the politics does not speak to those things. Issues of mental health, alcohol and drug abuse, violence, and just sheer poverty. The politics is not really discussing those things, including the broken families and the family units. Those are some of the social things that make up and break up our young people. And unfortunately, our politics does not address those. And it's true, we also need to bring back the relationship, the person-to-person relationship as citizens. That has also been broken. So that has led to a lot of mistrust.
Absolutely. I did agree with you. I mean, I've certainly known him, Irfan, for many years, watching him as this young guy, and he articulated, I think, his position very, very well in terms of the big challenges we face, and young people in politics, young people outside of politics.
Hi, Ashraf. In South Africa, there is nothing will get it right. Because, for example, now the youth challenges, we expect someone who is not subjected to the same conditions to come up with the solutions. For each and everything, you expect someone who's having the security system, everything, bodyguards, to come with the solution on the crime. So, yeah, 1976 youth, they were subjected to apartheid, all of them. That's why it was them easier for them to unite and do what they have to do. So now we expect the mosquitoes to go and fetch the cure for the malaria. This is Jacob in Mokopane, Goskakaping, Tango.
Okay, you think that's different, the fact that, that yes, there was the common enemy of apartheid, very easy to understand and to identify, and this can't be the case now. Right, there's more, here's another.
Yeah, what we can do for the youth of South Africa is clean up the country, just clean up the whole place, get rid of the foreigners who are feeding them drugs and taking their jobs, and make South Africa great again. With some respect.
Yeah, I hear you, but I mean, again, I'm going to step into it. It makes the assumption that only foreigners indulge in drug peddling and no South Africans are involved. It could be both. I mean, it could be partnerships. Why would it not be partnerships? Think about it. Why would it not be?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Lennon Hwedie. Today I heard the speech from the president. Maybe it was out of excitement by seeing the crowd at the stadium. He spoke about the TVET colleges, that our children, if they can't get access in the universities, they must apply at the TVET colleges. But I can tell you, the challenge our children are getting from these TVET colleges. One example I had is EWC in Germiston, where she's been applying for several times in the engineering faculty, but she was told now recently that no, they don't consider those who passed matric. They are dealing with those who failed matric. Now I want the president to get an initiative and go and check into those schools. Lennon.
Thanks for that, Lennon. Well, I'll tell you what, does he have a point? In fact, there are many suggesting, and I think Pani Hotla made the point the other day as well, that too many people are doing academic training and then graduating and then are unable to get placed because there is no space for them. So there's a complete mismatch. Let me give you a bizarre example. You can't train to become a rugby player and try and hope to make the football team, if you get my point. If there's shortage of footballers, you need to get footballers. We have this mismatch.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf Mbongo Sundi Sambuyisa. Mr. Ashraf, I would like to say to the gentleman Mbuyisa Makubo, who was carrying Hector Peterson on that famous picture of 1976, may his soul rest in peace, wherever the apartheid government or the apartheid police buried him or killed him, you must just rest in peace. We say the same kind. It's Mbongo Sundi Mbuyisa Matobela Vemnyama. Thanks, Mr. A.
All right, just call me A or Ashraf is fine. Leave the Mr. out, but appreciate the tribute as well. Right, let's move on to another issue of the court setting aside another issue that impacts all of us after this.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, so what about this? The High Court has set aside the decision to place the Mangaung Correctional Centre under immediate state control. So that was the decision. The court has set that aside. This happened years after Bester, remember Tambo Bester, escaped from the facility. Let's understand what this really means and the implications thereof with Komotso Romolobeng, who's the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services. Thank you for your time, Komotso. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
And good afternoon to the listeners at home.
Thank you. Let's talk about the implications of it being set aside. Tell me about that.
For now, I would not say there are implications or there are dire implications because this talks to the Administrative Act, which in 2023, I think around 30 March or in March, the department through the National Commissioner and the Minister back then took a decision to temporarily put a manager in Mangaung Correctional Facility because of what would have transpired, basing it on the Thabo Bester escape, and equally giving the facility, the management that is managing that facility, a notice of termination of the contract. Then the management took the department to court. It talks to that, but the reason I'm saying there are no dire implications is because the concession contract that started in 2001, which was for 25 years, comes to an end on the 30th of this month, in June, which means on the 1st of July, the department will still take over the facility. So this talks to what it's due to the management of the facility, which the court would have made an indication that they need to pay, and they're setting aside the decisions that they took back then to temporarily put the facility under administration or even intention of terminating the contract before the contract due date to end was coming. So if the department would have, if the management did not take the department to court, it means the concession contract would have ended in 2023. So now that the process has taken over and it took long for the judgment to come, the concession, however, it comes to an end now. But those are implications that the department will talk to where it affects them or where there are effects, but it does not talk to now the department taking over the facility to be under the state, unlike now being a triple P.
All right, so to be clear, what is the status then of the facility as it stands today?
The facility is still under the Bloemfontein management, under the concession contract, to say the list. But on the first, as I indicated, the contract comes to an end on the 30th of June. So the department right now, it's busy on a transition to take over. They appeared before the Portfolio Committee 2 weeks ago to take us through the HR process in employing new officials in that facility, to taking over the kitchen, the hospital that is there. all other subcontracts that the management of that facility was busy with. Now that transition is to take it from a private-public facility to now a state facility based on what the concession would say. So that process is still undergoing, and it's seamless of taking over. What now the High Court has spoken to, the department must come into effect. But what we have done as the committee, equal ourselves, we have sent this judgment to the legal team of Parliament to be able to advise the portfolio committee if there would be a need for us to make sure that the department adheres to the judgment. One, two, equally where we would play an oversight role, and so that we're able to do it. So we're still waiting for the legal team to be able to advise. But the preliminary advice we got is that it has no implication of the department taking over on the 1st of July.
Okay, and amongst those recommendations, besides the 1st of July, anything else you'd like to touch on?
Look, we're looking forward for the department to take over the facility. It's been too long. The facility has been marred with controversies, elements of the department, not the department, the management not doing as it's supposed to. They seem reliant on also accounting or reporting to the department. So it's about time that the department can take the facility. Perhaps it will minimize the controversies. But we know that what we've entailed the department is that they must make sure they keep the status quo of the facility. They maintain the facility because of it's the state-of-an-art facility amongst the rest of facilities that the department has. So they must maintain the status quo, make sure that it's not overcrowded, because currently the house is around 2,928 inmates. So they must cap it at that and not have it overcrowded. So those are the things that we have said to the department. But in the second week of July, the portfolio committee will go to the facility to make sure that that transitional process of the department taking over the facility is done seamlessly, and to get reports if there are any incidents in the process. And lastly, as well, satisfy ourselves that indeed the department is ready in taking over that facility without any hindrances and so forth.
All right, let me end with this, and this is a broader question, right? I mean, what's just happened, in many ways, for many people listening, it will be a reflection on so many other, correctional facilities that may need correction, if you get my point. What is this? What for you are the big lessons to learn in broad speak, outside of even just Mangaung?
With regarding to the Triple P, we are related?
Yes, yeah.
Look, Triple Ps, on how they were designed to assist the department to manage overcrowding, to manage also issues of finances, since you know that instead of budgets are being cut most of the time. So the Triple P idea was good, but the managing part of it, I think that's where the problem is. And I'm raising this on the basis that we have two Triple Ps in the country. We have one in Kutama, we have one in Mangaung. The one in Kutama seems to be running as it's supposed to. They seem to be adhering to everything that requires to be adhered to. There are no controversies. There are no issues with relates to how they are managing the facility. The only issue is the Mangaung one, where there seems to be a power struggle between the department and those who are managing that facility. Even now, they would have taken the department to court on some elements of subcontracts. They want the subcontracting of those allegations of the clinic, preparing food for inmates, and security issues, including the IT component side of it, for them to continue with the process. And we can't allow that, or we can't agree to it, because one, inmates in the departmental facilities or correctional facilities, inmates are the ones who are cooking for themselves, which are supervised by officials. So the status quo must be the same in Mangaung. It must not be different. The clinics or the hospitals that are being managed and run in correctional facilities are done so by professional nurses, professional doctors. The same must happen in Mangaung. We must not outsource for that. It must be an internal thing that is happening, including security. Correctional department is a security department. You can't outsource their core function, which is security, and which in this instance, in Mangaung, in the Triple Ps, they are outsourcing security. So those are some of the elements, perhaps they will still be in court, because as I know, the department would have appealed that matter in the labor court. So there would be some of the elements that are between the G4S and the department in going forth. But we have given a backup as the portfolio committee to the department that they should take over the facility. In actual fact, the department must take over all the triple Ps, which are the two, which Mangaung ends 30th of June 2026 and Kutama will end next year in 2027. So the process of how the transition will take over for Mangaung will serve or must serve as a lesson for the department in taking over next year.
And I think you've made your point very, very clearly on that. You're right. Correctional services, you can't outsource that, can you? Khomotso Ramolabeng, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services. Appreciate your input here on the National Pulse. By the way, we have a podcast of all the big issues we've discussed today. So if you want to get them and listen to them again and then download them and then share that with your friends over supper or family, please do so. Really welcome. That allows you to be so connected to the National Pulse.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Quite heavy traffic making its way back to Gauteng via Mpumalanga this afternoon. There's roadworks on the Schoeman's-Kloof section between Montrose and the R36 Leidenberg exit. Up to 3 sets of stop-go control, so you will be waiting around in the bigger volumes today. And then quite a big crash scene at Vanderfontein. So once you get past Belfast coming into Vanderfontein, quite a backlog there. And then more roadworks after that as you head through towards the Middelburg area. So just lots of stopping and starting all the way through there. The other big story is a major backlog again today. We saw it yesterday with the post-Comrades event. We're seeing it today with the back end of a long weekend, returning holiday makers coming off the coast of KZN. The run between Nottingham Road and Moy River is a major backlog. Only one lane open. You've effectively got 3 lanes going into one, plus about 1,000 vehicles an hour through there. I just want to have a look at Newcastle through towards the Volksrust area on, again, the back end of a weekend. That can be busy sometimes. It's not too bad today. That run up the N11 looking okay. And if you're coming back into Cape Town, the N2 through Hohook Pass, Krabo, and over Sir Lowry's Pass looks fairly doable. No signs of any queues. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAfm Sports with Duming Khapele.
Well, there's 4 big World Cup games, effectively tonight, overnight, but there's netball to start with to me.
Yes, Free State Crinum's coach, Martha Muswatle-Sam, says that she's very happy that her players embraced the team's mandate and delivered on expectations to claim the 2026 Telkom Netball League title. The Crinums dethroned defending champions, the Gauteng Fireballs, with a commanding 46-32 victory in the final at the Rembrandt Hall in Pretoria yesterday. And Muswatle-Sam says that it was crucial for the team to refine its strategy after falling short in the 2025 campaign.
It's an amazing feeling. It was pretty sad last year when we lost it in the final, and we knew that we needed to work hard, came back with a different strategy, just a strategy of being dominant in everything we do. It's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. The girls knew how it felt last year, and we needed to come back and make sure that we win this one. And I'm so proud of them, how they just stuck at it and being humble and remaining humble even when we were winning everyone else. You could see that the girls knew the mandate, and they knew that the most important match was going to be tonight.
Moving on to football, Iran head coach Amir Galanoy says that his team are the most oppressed at the World Cup. This is after being forced to relocate their training camp to Mexico due to tensions with the United States. Team Melli opened the Group G campaign with a 22 draw against New Zealand at Sophie Stadium in Los Angeles, where their anthem was cheered by sections of the 70,000 strong crowd. Now, despite the hostile backdrop, a passionate Iranian-American contingent roared the side on as they battled to a point in the opener. Elsewhere, DR Congo head coach Sebastian says that his team are determined to put on a good showing as they begin their first World Cup campaign since 1974 against Portugal in Houston. Tomorrow, kick off around 7 p.m. The Leopards' preparations were disrupted by an Ebola outbreak back home, forcing them into a 21-day quarantine before relocating their training camp to Belgium. They drew goalless with Denmark and lost 2-1 to Chile in a warm-up match. But Desabre praised his players' resilience, and DR Congo qualified via the playoffs with a 10 extra time win over Jamaica in March. Portugal, who are unbeaten in 2026 under Roberto Martinez, arrive in strong form after victories over Chile and Nigeria. In cricket, Proteas women's sensation Kayla Renica says or has admitted that she was a bit nervous when she made her senior T20 World Cup debut against Australia on Saturday. Unfortunately, it wasn't one to remember for her, as she was dismissed for a duck, having faced just 3 balls and coming in for Marizanne Cup with the team relay 82-4 and still needing 91 for victory from just 51 deliveries. The 20-year-old says that she did feel some big stage anxiety, but not really any pressure to rescue her side.
I wouldn't say so. I mean, obviously, cricket is very unpredictable. So sometimes it comes off, sometimes it doesn't. But when it comes off, it's pretty cool and pretty special. But yeah, I mean, that's cricket. You can't be 100% on your game every single day. It was the first game. A bit of nerves is normal. But I mean, now that the first game is gone, we can just look forward to the tournament.
Well, in terms of rugby, former Springbok captain Victor Matfield says that Jacques Nienaber would embrace being back in the South African setup if his tenure at Leinster ends. Matfield insisted that the World Cup winning coach remains highly valued in South Africa despite criticism in Ireland, and he believes that Nienaber's expertise in the famed rush defence makes him indispensable. Matfield joked that the Springboks would find room for him on the management team, adding that if the opportunity is there for us to get Jacques back, we will make it work. Nienaber had guided Leinster to another URC final but faces uncertainty over his long-term future in Dublin. More on other sports in the next hour.
Okay, perfect. I'm trying to navigate what I can do tonight. 9 o'clock, definite. Midnight, no, man. But I'd love to watch that Argentina game at 3 o'clock in the morning, but the chances are I'll be fast asleep. You never know.
Wherever you are in the world, SAfm 104 to 107 is accessible. We're also streaming live on Facebook, X, and YouTube at SAfm Radio. We acknowledge and appreciate everyone tuning in and watching our streams. Stay with SAfm 104 to 107 as we bring you commission live, breaking stories, and thought-provoking lectures. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us. From the class of 1976 to the generation of TikTok, AI, and unemployment, the conversation continues on SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
And I mean, a couple of points on that. I see the EFF leader Julius Malema quoted as saying that, there are 10 million young South Africans who are not working or not studying. Not working, not studying, not looking for jobs, and therefore believes that the actual unemployment rate stands close to 69, 70%. I mean, that's his thought, but it's a frightening thought anyway, right? There's also other developments in the Middle East, which we may pick up in a moment. Let's get to the callers. I need to hear you out. Fingers on the pulse. Solomon in KZN. Hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to SAfm listeners.
Yeah, good talking to you.
I want to steal, though not verbatim, from Fanon's words, which said each generation must, out of relevant obscurity, discover its own mission, decide whether to fulfill it or betray it. Without any doubt, the 1976 generation did its best in terms of deciphering what the circumstances then meant and what mission imposed upon them, and they acted. However, I think the president has said quite a lot. The problem with South Africans is just that we are speaking from different angles. We are a very heterogeneous kind of a society, which even in cases where we should be acting in unison, we enjoy out of laxity, I think, or luxuriousness, the divisions. The president has laid barely the programs that the government is engaged in. And this thing of speaking from different angles confuses young people. There are a lot of programs in government in various levels, national, provincial, and elsewhere, programs which aim at assisting young people in terms of giving them skills. Because the economy, as matters pan out, we need a very strong vocational education as South Africans. Education which is going to impart to young people skills, practical skills for them to be able to thrive in cases where you need welders and various trades that are currently in demand out there, and try to reduce this education which emphasizes broad theoretical education as opposed to skills. I think that's what we need if we are to fight successfully against unemployment.
Okay.
And by extension, inequality and all other scourges that are raging in our country.
I think you're right. And to do that, as per the Fanon, let's not betray this generation. I think it's very important. Point made from you, Solomon. The question is, how do we go about doing just that? Colin in Cape Town, hi.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Ashraf, the 76 students uprising.
Yeah.
You know, they're all mothers and fathers and grannies today. Now, I would love to know what the youth of today have taken out of their book, their fight, their struggle, and all that. Because the youth of today is in such a shambles. We've got problems at schools with drugs. We got problems with teenage pregnancy. We got problems all over with our youth today. So I wonder, our politicians, they were all youths those days. What message did they send down for the generation of today's youth?
Well, look, I mean, it's a difficult one to answer. I think many of those people...
Yes.
No, but listen, many of them became
nothing.
leaders. My question is, what have you learned from the youth of 1976?
What I've learned, listen to Ramaphosa. He's talking about the highest pass rate in South Africa's history. He's talking about this and that. But as the last caller I was listening to him, the education must be lifted. Skills, tradesmen must come into our country. We need those people. They work with their hands. They employ themselves. They can employ other people. Welders, carpenters, plumbers. We need those people. Why did the government take it away in the first place?
Okay, I got that. Did they take it away, Colin, in Cape Town? Did they really do that? Okay, more thoughts from you, which we'll pick up on. Still to come, we'll chat after 5 as part of this Youth Day commemoration. We'll chat to Mzwaki Mbuli, and he will pick up some of his key points in terms of exactly where we are, the youth of today, and the big challenges. By the way, talking about global development, so here's an interesting one. We chatted yesterday to Naim Jina around this peace agreement between Iran and the USA and Israel, and obviously Lebanon being part of that. An interesting one, Netanyahu tweeting yesterday, in fact, saying, without an agreement, as long as I am Prime Minister of Israel, Iran will not have nuclear weapons. So question is, do we have a peace agreement or not? Good day, sir. The problem with the South Africans, we don't travel. I used to say, I'll leave this country, I won't come back, but now I know South Africa is heaven. We are a very lucky nation. But it's so bland, I'm really not too sure, because you're not giving me the facts. I mean, what are the receipts for you to make that statement? What are you actually saying here?
I'm so happy and overwhelmed listening to South Africans sending voice notes on your show, also calling, trying to talk and fix about the problem that our country is facing. And my question to our fellow African brothers and sisters, how does it feel to hear South Africans trying to fix their own countries? Their own country, and what they are doing to try and fix their own countries. Thank you, Anonymous.
Thanks, Anonymous. I'm not too sure what you're trying to say. I guess what you're trying to say. But let me touch on the issue of immigration. I think there's a story in the history of the world that people move from place to place. It could be thousands of kilometers. It could be 100 kilometers in those days, which was like worth 1,000 today, when they feel that the conditions in that region does not suit them. They're dissatisfied, they're angry, they're bitter, they have no hope, they move. So the point is, it's one thing telling people, go and fix your own countries and why do you come and live here? The reality is we all, and if we really studied properly, we'll all have families who have moved from somewhere. Yes, for some people it's 50 Ks, for some people it's 5,000 Ks, for some people it's 10,000 Ks. We've all moved somewhere to, it is the nature of human beings to move to places better. And they don't see passports as a factor, meaning they want to search for a better life. So I think if we want less people to migrate crisscrossing our continent, and then even less people to migrate from Africa to, say, Europe and other places too, then we need to ensure that the leadership of each one of our countries and those who are entrusted with leading need to get their act together and make sure things work out, which we don't always do, right? So that's a big challenge to all of us. Let me pick out another quick voice note before we get to our next guest.
Finds well. My name is Bongo from Newcastle. What could the old people do to secure the future of young people? We need to properly hold the private sector accountable. We need to properly hold the private sector accountable. They play a big role in this corruption, illegal immigration, and most of our social ills that we have within the country. A lot of these private companies, so-called private companies, are basically companies to siphon money off the state, but no one holds them to account in terms of investing back into this country, and hence the economy is not growing. We need to check that out very carefully.
We need to check it out. Right, we're going to get to another guest just in a moment or so, but here's another one.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Salim from Durban. See, youths are very important to this country and very important to the future. Youths will generate the labor force. You need labor to build a country. Now, in our case, youths need to have opportunities and hope. Youths do not see hope and they cannot find employment. And one of the biggest reasons why this is happening is because imports. We're getting cheap imports from overseas. As a result, the industries and businesses here are affected. They are now unable to find jobs because the industries are closing. We need to now look at the import, curtail the import so jobs can be created in South Africa.
But I hear what you're saying about curtail the import, but isn't linked to that is the global economy, that you actually want to export, you want to import. There's balance of payments, but balance of trade. You cannot be isolated as a country. If you say we're not going to import from others, you're also going to tell them we're not going to export to you. Then how do you do business? The way the world works now may be very, very different. In fact, going back to those years, I don't know, going back to the Phoenicians and Marco Polo and all trying to get spices in the East, like that notion of doing trade outside your boundaries is the most natural thing that human beings engage in, don't you think?
As we celebrate 90 years of existence, SAFM takes you back to the voices that shaped a nation.
Tolani Gwala will be back again for you 6 to 9 Monday here on SAFM.
And
thanks, Tolani. Good morning and welcome to Morning Talk with me, Kim Gabadeli.
The name is Bonge Kwala. Good to be with you till midday today. Let's engage South Africa.
Welcome to Morning Talk on SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader, with me, Rowena Bird.
90 years of trusted voices. This is SAFM. Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
All right, let's pick up another issue that in many ways is linked to youth, but with a very specific slant, which is the Green Youth Indaba. So the 11th annual Green Youth Indaba Week actually moves on up to the 19th of June. Let's find out more about it. With me is Sanele Zulu, Green Youth Network Chairperson. Sanele, I appreciate you joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to be here.
Thank you. Let's talk about this. Green Youth Indaba. What does that mean?
Well, the Green Youth Indaba basically is a conference that brings together young people to talk about issues that relate to climate change, or what we call now the circular economy. we may be aware that, we have an issue of climate change, but also it brings about opportunities. And I think ours really is to canvass and advance the youth interest within the green economy. So this year we're going to be having it for the 11th time, and it's going to be happening in the Northwest.
All right, give me the nature of it. I mean, when you say having it, what comes through in that and some specifics?
Yeah. So, for example, this year we're looking at, our theme being from youth innovation to green enterprise and economic impact. So what we really do, Ashraf, is that we challenge young people across the country to come up with solutions on how they can basically protect the environment. But while they come up with these solutions, we basically ask them to say, how can they create jobs through those solutions? But also we challenge government to open up opportunities and give access to young people and support to saying if a young person really has a skill in around, the green economy, how do they then access the job market? But two, if they need funding, how do they access that as well? So we've got a couple of partners that we're working with, including CCBSA and the likes, that have come on board to say, Sanele, bring the cohort of young people that have got interest within the green economy. We will support them, we will educate them and train them.
So when we say the green economy, and I certainly have an idea what it is, but let's be sure there's no ambiguity. What are we talking about, specifics?
So we're talking about basically the issue of climate change. And I think not only climate change, I think I'll touch on just waste as one of the key pillars of what we look at when we talk about the green economy. I'm sure there's many people that know that, waste can be converted into treasure, but our waste also pollutes our rivers, our ocean. And for us, it's quite important that we don't only protect ourselves, but we protect our nature. But now what's important about understanding the green economy is the opportunities, therefore, that comes when we are trying to protect our environment, when we're trying to protect our nature. For example, waste. There's young people that have run now buyback centers where they collect boxes, they collect plastic, and those plastics and boxes can be recycled. And if it's recycled, they can make a livelihood out of that.
All right, so you said, it runs till the 19th. When does it start? And give me some of the speakers and some of the components that make up the actual week.
Sure. So basically, it started yesterday. It's called the Green Youth Indaba Week. Yesterday, Ashraf, we had a cleanup campaign in the Northwest where we're educating the community about the importance of cleaning up their space, but also how they convert their waste into treasure. But two, today we had a Green Careers Expo. So we made sure that we invite rural high schools within the Northwest and across the country that may gather together and be exposed to opportunities that exist within the green space. So we had people that were coming to speak about the green careers. And then on tomorrow, we have master classes. We have the Green Innovators Pitch that we run like a Dragon's Den style, where basically then young people from across the country will be coming to pitch their ideas. But we also have got technical master classes that assist SMEs and innovators in terms of their businesses. Then, of course, on the 18th and the 19th, we have the main conference, which will basically be looking at plenary session, where we've got a couple of ministers that are going to be coming there. The Premier of the Northwest is going to be officially opening the conference on the 18th. We've got Deputy Minister Sihle Zikalala that's going to be there, talking about the issues as it relates to public works and as it relates to climate change and what are the opportunities there that exist really. So we've got some exciting speakers that are going to be coming through. Even innovators themselves as young people are going to be also there.
All right. And, who should attend? Who can attend?
Well, we're looking for young people. It's always your 18 to 35 young people. We're quite specific on that. But what we strongly are looking for as well is basically investors. We're looking for people that can invest in young people. When people talk about opportunities, we want to make sure that also, the likes of your CETAs are available and they are there. And we've partnered with a couple of CETAs on this one, but also we've got units within the government departments that are there. Department of Science and Innovation is one of the key stakeholders into this. So basically, we're looking at 18 to 35 young people that have got interest within the green economy, whether it's agriculture, waste, innovation. Those young people are invited.
All right. Give me a website address or a link I could recommend people go and check out.
Sure. People can go to greenyouthindaba.co.za, greenyouthindaba.co.za. They will find us there. I know that, Ashraf, the tickets are quite limited, but we will definitely be accepting some guys if they can send us an email, and then we can chat to them as well. But they'll find the details on the website.
Right. Green Youth Indaba. Simple as that. greenyouthindaba.co.za. Sanele, I appreciate your time. Thank you for your time. That's the type of innovations and drive we want more of in abundance. Chairperson, that is Sanele Zulu, chairperson of the Green Youth Network.
Different generations, different experiences. One South Africa, 50 years later. Only on SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
Right. What else would you like to pick up on? I mean, we have been talking about the youth and Youth Day, and I I see Herman Mashaba saying nothing to celebrate. I don't know. I mean, how do you say there's nothing to celebrate? Because that suggests you forget that particular day of June 16, 1976. But is it celebration? Is it commemoration? I think it's honoring them. It's honoring those that did what they did before and being empowered and inspired by what they did to do something perhaps even greater now, because there are new battles, there are new batons to carry, there are new challenges, there are new causes to fight, aren't they? And if it is not, it should not just be about, like a fun day in the sun that just have a party, and therefore because there's high unemployment they say we're not going to have a party, because that's not the party. The party to talk about is the party of South Africa Inc. to ensure we're all on side in terms of understanding the biggest problems that we face in our country, isn't it?
Ashraf and your team and lovely South Africans, it's Eddie from Understress. The issue of youth development or empowerment is very crucial. But let me tell you, we wrote a letter to the two deputy ministers in the office of the president. At least one was responding through her officials. The other one didn't, because we had what we call the Youth Empowerment Program here in Machabing. But unfortunately, some of the things is like, if you're not politically aligned to them, then you'll be sidelined and forgetting how many people are getting punished for that. So we need to correct our politics. I'm telling you now, we need to correct our politics, and so that opportunity arises for young people. Thank you very much.
So how do you correct our politics?
Jeff, in Mr. Ramaphosa's Youth Day speech, he was shifting all the responsibility and onto the youth. The youth must make a better this and a better that, build better villages, make a better municipality, build this and that. That was the things that ANC was supposed to do from 1994. How can he shift it onto the youth who have no work? Did that man hear himself?
Well, I think you may be right, because, at that time in 1976, the youth were opposing an illegitimate system. This time around, you have a government, an elected government, and you have a parliament that's working. It's a functioning democracy. So you're quite right. The youth can help, they can enable. They can't be the leaders of everything right now when there are people in parliament governing and leading our country. The question is, what are we doing to uplift the youth? Are we opening doors? Are we able to provide for the youth a seat at the table, a table that they choose? Think about that. It's 5 o'clock. Here's the news with Greg.
Thank you, Ashraf. A call for greater efforts to address youth unemployment and honouring the heroes of 1976. Good day to you. With joblessness among young people in the country standing at 46%, President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged the private sector to help tackle youth unemployment. He was speaking at the National Youth Day commemoration at the FNB Stadium outside Soweto.
Unemployment must be seen as a societal problem. Government has a responsibility to continuously take action to address this problem. However, the private sector also has a responsibility to also address the challenge of unemployment. And we say to the private sector, who is the biggest employer in any economy, we say open your doors to the employment of young people. Government will not ask you to carry that risk alone. Through the employment tax incentive, we already share the cost of bringing young people into their first job.
The EFF leader Julius Malema says President Ramaphosa has brought disgrace upon the presidency through the Phala scandal. The President has filed an urgent application in the Western Cape High Court to interdict Parliament's impeachment committee from beginning its inquiry into the theft at his Phala farm in 2020. The matter is set to be heard next month. Malema addressed party supporters at the EFF's June 16th rally at the Union Buildings in Pretoria.
Ramaphosa has brought a shame
into the Union building. The ANC has brought a shame into the Union building. They must leave, and they must leave now. We are in Parliament, in the impeachment committee. We are going to remove Ramaphosa. He went to court to try and stop that process. The EFF applied to join. The court said join. When he tried to interdict, we oppose. We are going to court again with him. He will never stop that process.
South Africans should never tire in honouring its historical heroes as they sacrificed and paved a way forward for them. Speaking at the party's June 16th commemoration in Soweto, the SAPO leader, Nelbus Leqema, also called for further investigation into the death of Sitsi Mashanini, one of the student leaders during the 1976 Soweto uprising.
As SAPO, we are also calling, as we did in 2012, calling and demanding, in fact, and we should not even be demanding from a black president and from a black government the opening of an inquest for Tsietsi Mashinini, because the history that we have and what we saw as SAPO, remember SAPO buried Tsietsi here in 1990. And then those who were there, they will tell you, when you looked at him in his coffin, his eye was falling inside his eye socket. And
the protest against undocumented immigrants in Cape Town by activists from the March and March movement has concluded peacefully in Sea Point. The movement's Charlie Roux says their next planned march will take place this Saturday in Wynberg.
Peacefully marching, it's within our rights. That's why we're marching, to urge actually the government and the police to do their job. We're not a vigilante movement here. And these marches that have been, where people have been hurt, it had nothing to do with March and March.
The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is believed to have arrived for his corruption trial in Tel Aviv as protesters demonstrated outside the court. His trial began in 2020 and has been frequently interrupted during 2 years of war in the Middle East. He denies the charges against him, which include bribery and fraud. Paula Kirch is one of the demonstrators outside court.
We've been standing in front of the courts of Israel in Tel Aviv for over a year now to make sure that Benjamin Netanyahu stands on trial and doesn't run away from sitting in jail for all the crimes that he's committed. It has to be very clear that Netanyahu has failed in all his targets, internally and externally. There is no target that he has succeeded to obtain, whether it be the war against Iran, Hezbollah, or Hamas. They have all strengthened, and the only entity that's weakened is Israel.
Top story with joblessness among young people in the country standing at 46%. President Ramaphosa has urged the private sector to help tackle youth unemployment. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Hus.
Well, coming up in news sports this hour, Spain all set for Senegal test. Haaland relishes Barbarians' chance against the Bucks, and Serena Williams to play doubles alongside sister Venus at Wimbledon. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. We kick off in Pretoria with some very heavy traffic around the Union buildings. There's been a big political rally there today for Youth Day. Routes like Hamilton, Stansville, Poppy and Pretoria Street are under quite a bit of pressure in that area as well. Motorists driving back from KZN back towards Gauteng. Long delays continue on the N3 north between Nottingham Road and Moy River, effectively coming from 3 lanes into 1 for roadworks. And a short time ago, about 1,000 vehicles an hour on that section. So it is busy and there is a big delay to work through. Just want to get you an update from Mpumalanga as well. We had a big crashing at Vanderfontein today, so if you're coming in from Belfast towards Middelburg, that is still very slow. Once you get past that crash at Vanderfontein, there's a couple more work areas as you make your way through towards Middelburg, and again it's a high volume route, that one. Cape Town looks alright, whether you're coming out of the city centre today or whether you're coming back in via Solaris Pass or even the Huguenot Tunnel. Options to get back into Cape Town after the weekend looking fine. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So I'd like to take your calls, whatever it is you want to get off your chest It could be about the Youth Day today. It could be about the Youth Day of 1976. It could be something in between all of that. It could be some other big global issues and the party political, mudslinging, often an accusation that gets thrown out every single time we have these politically linked holidays, right? So whatever it is, we'll chat, by the way. And if you're going to call in Tabisang, we'll take your call. So do that right away. We'll chat to Mzwaki Mbuli shortly. Here's a quick one I want to just pick up on, because I think it's interesting. It comes from Asanda Kobesi in Gqeberha. Ashraf, there's a growing tendency to compare the youth of 2026 with the generation of 1976. While such comparisons may be well-intentioned, they overlook a fundamental reality. The political and social environments of the two eras are fundamentally different. So every generation must confront the realities of its own time. The youth of 2026 should not be expected to replicate the struggles of 76. They must instead find their own voice and develop solutions to South Africa's contemporary challenges. The next chapter of South Africa's democracy should not merely be written for young people, but it should be written by them. Well, I must tell you, I agree with everything you've said. Totally. Okay. Here's another one. Ashraf Malema is boring. He has run out of words. He's AI, artificial intelligence, maybe is what you're saying. I don't know. It's only about Ramaphosa and his demise. Shame. If only he was aware that his own Malema demise is imminent. Comes from Kabeli in Blumanda, I think it is. Okay. Right. We'll talk. We will reflect, however, for now, on 50 years of the Soweto uprising right after this.
In 1976, the youth switch on, and for 50 years the nation has watched as the story unfolds. And namhlanje, the courage looks the same and different. It looks like showing up when no one believes in you. It's about finding the strength to stand up again. The courage of 1976 is appealing in 2026. SAPC 1, Zanzi for sure, the source of youth courage. My God.
Quantum on SAFM.
Step into the future with Quantum. The radio show that goes beyond the headlines to explore how you can evolve, adapt, and thrive in times of rapid change. We will explore cutting-edge thinking coupled with practical life design applications. I'm Angela Ludek, and I invite you to join this community where real progress begins with human capital development. Quantum, Monday to Friday, 3 to 5 a.m. on SAFM.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Well, we'll get to Mzwaki Mbuli as soon as we can. In fact, there's been further comments about Donald Trump and Israel and Hezbollah. It's just fascinating listening to how these things play out. I mean, and he said Israel's fighting Hezbollah too long and too many people are being killed. He then said he opposed strikes that destroy apartment buildings filled with civilians and revealed he urged Israel to let Syria take the lead against Hezbollah instead. If Israel can't do the job without killing everyone else, he'll do the job. Syria will do the job. And then there's a different question. I mean, on different news platforms, are you frustrated with Netanyahu? And Trump says, no, we have a great relationship. But then saying many more things. Now, that's just some of it. And here's a general thought for you. It's probably something I've said before. What do you make about how the different political parties use a national day like Youth Day to then take pot shots at other political parties and political leadership instead of focusing on their views, their policies, their mission, and what is best for the country? Am I over-exaggerating that? I just wonder what you make of that, right? Think about that too and give me your thoughts, right? We do now have Mzwaki Mbuli, who's, as you know, a poet, musician, and activist. Mzwaki, good to connect with you on the National Pulse. Mzwaki, have I got you there? Hi.
I'm here.
Yes, good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time here today.
It's a pleasure.
Right. Now, I mean, two things we want to talk about. Just first of all, for you to make the comparison, because it's come up now with many of the audience as well, to compare activism now versus activism then. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, in 1976 we were faced with we were under an oppressive regime, and either should say a brutal regime. And I think if people want to compare, the generation today, they have a choice in terms of language. What was a surprise to us was a bombshell dropped by the Nationalist Party government that we were now going to use, or they were going to, in fact, Afrikaans was introduced as the medium of instruction. So that was a Bantu Education Act. So we were not even given a choice. It was not a consultation. It's not only a white paper. It was just imposed. Take it or leave it. So it was difficult. Remember, we're coming from poor homes, and using English was another challenge, but using Afrikaans was the worst of them all. So when we expected to communicate in a mathematics class, science class, using using Afrikaans, was a mission impossible. And when we appealed, when we resisted that, so obviously you know the outcome, a bullet, a massacre. Are we on air?
Yeah, we certainly are. Now, I mean, you know,
okay.
Yeah, we are on air.
Yeah,
We
so
definitely.
the comparison, Ashraf. So there was resilience, okay? People realized that if this is the situation we put, at the back of a hole, we have no choice. We have to fight back. I mean, sometimes another form of defense is to attack. So we had to say, let us mobilize. There was no violence, plenty. Let us mobilize and in numbers and come out in numbers and so the regime or the state that the people of Soweto, because they wanted to introduce in Soweto first, that we're not prepared to accept what was imposed without actually the implementation or a pilot project. So that is the situation. So if you say, compare the now generation, their challenges are different from ours. The resilience, the pluck, merit is not the same. But one would have assumed that the current generation was going to be more resilient than us because we're faced with a regime that is no longer there. In their situation, it was like a betting. They were supposed to take over where we left off. For example, we were oppressed. Besides the education, the black people were poor. So, and the economy then was not in black hands. In the economy today, it's not in the black hands. So the economy does not benefit its own citizens. So if they are poor today, they have to rise up because the generation services cannot rise them up on their behalf. So these are the guys that must make history. So they have no reason to fear, but no change to lose, but to fight and change the system. I think like the seas must fall, they change in number. So the now generation have no reason but to fight. But if they are quiet, they are coward, they will end up referred to as cowards or be compared with us. Yet everyone is talking about unemployed graduates, they don't have jobs, etc. So they must do something. Folding hands, a dream without implementation will die.
But what must they do? I mean, we had the previous call, and I tend to agree, reading out what was said, to say you can't actually compare the struggles of 1976 versus the struggles of 2026. The premise of a struggle for a higher goal is always going to be there, but the actual struggles and the terrain is very, very different.
Yeah, well, Steve Biko believed and read books of Frantz Fanon, and he believed that every generation has got its own challenges, and the 80th generation must actually make its mark. They have no reason not to make their mark. The education that they are having today is not the same as ours. Our era, for a white child, it was 1,000 rand, and on a black child, it was 10 rand. Okay? So these guys, if they are able to identify their problems, they must rise up. They must do something. Ashraf, I'm not saying they must turn tables upside down, but they must do something. Their impact must be felt so that there will be changes in the country. They must demand, they must fight for transformation. They can't be lazy. They can't, they can't lament as though nothing can be done. They must mobilize. They must, unite. They must do something. Take the streets. I've seen.
How are they able to do that when, one, it's a democracy compared to apartheid South Africa, but also they are steeped in poverty and unemployment and unskilled. When you say they must fight, like, what does they must fight mean?
Ashraf, in Zulu, I was going to say, hunger actually creates, or leads to anger. If they are hungry, they must do something. They cannot say, we are hungry, we cannot do anything. I walked 6 kilometers from Deep Soweto to Jablana. Now, barefoot, at some stage, shoes were there. So I'm saying, Ashraf, it's not an excuse that, look, let me give another saying. Unlike the stomach, unlike the brain, the stomach will tell you when it is empty. So these guys must do something. Ashraf, even democracies around the world, people actually toppled them. So I'm just saying to you, even the word democracy, fortunately where I'm sitting, Ashraf, somebody must tell me, what is the meaning of democracy? Is an African word of democracy, a direct translation of a democracy, because some people will end up being dictators under the ban of democracy. So if our democracy in South Africa has not alleviated poverty, has not alleviated hunger, unemployment, since 1994, people are told, vote for better life. What happens after they've voted? They wait for another 5 years, they tick a box. Where are the jobs? Okay. So now we are talking about millions. It's an exaggeration. Millions. So they must take it to the streets.
All right. So when you say, I just want to get clarity from you. When you say they must do something, what is that something that they must do?
So, Ashraf, when you're prepared to do something, even if it means toppling a regime, to make sense. I'm just saying, if it's identifying a particular situation that has to be, for example, if the capitalism or there are forces that are only, look, let me give you one example. Would you keep quiet if you are told in Dubai, one oil, one mineral, it was a desert, today it's a kingdom? In South Africa, 54 registered minerals. People see coal, Richards Bay, they see gold, diamond, copper. All these things are extracted, but they are taken out of the country. They either must create a blockade. I think things must come down and shut down. And so not in our name. You can't take what is God-given or minerals and go and feed outside the country. So I'm just saying to you, they will listen. This is the country that has a reputation that they only act when you do something. Today, you will talk of these things that are happening about illegal documents, the foreigners. So the government only speaks now and say you are making the country a banana republic, but other people are saying it's long been a banana republic. How did it happen that millions entered the country? They did not come through the sky or the sea. They came through either the borders. But if you've got law enforcement agencies, the army, the police, etc., it's a kind of bribery. South Africa is an epicenter of everything.
All right, but when you say, like regime change, I mean, we have a democracy. It's illegal to call for regime change in a country like this where it's a constituent democracy. I'm just reminding you.
The Americans, they say it all the time. They are never arrested.
But that's America. This is South Africa.
Yeah, so I'm saying to you, I think it's the same thing as if the Bible says kingdom rise and fall. When my people are groaning, God will act. I heard the cries of my people. Chief Lutuli's book was saying, let my people go. So people, I'm saying, you see, fortunately, I'm not saying people must pick up arms. But through the ballot, if people cannot get what they want through the ballot, what else must they do? They must go and fast and pray in the mountains. But all that I'm saying, Ashraf, if it's the same as if failure to do what is right is sin before God. See, something needs to happen. We cannot have a country after 30 years, 32 years. People are still lamenting and crying. People are still living in tin shacks. So we live in a world today of people who are extremely rich and people extremely poor. I don't think those martyrs who laid their lives, they did that on behalf of the rich today and the chosen few. Yet people, when they actually sacrifice thinking that they're looking for a country, a total emancipation they were promised freedom fighters that we're fighting a country, we're going to have a free South Africa that was going to be free for all, a better life. But people are still chasing it. And the better life is still like a mirage.
Well, I think that we all agree that it's been very elusive. Let me end with this. I mean, I understand you have a June 16th movie idea. Tell me about that quickly.
Yeah, Ashraf, since 2014, the research started there. 2017, I think Winnie Mandela thought the dream was going to come up. We've been to DTI, we've been to, National Lottery Council. I think this was somewhere in 2016. The number of promises, empty promises, etc. So, well, it's unfortunate that this 2016 scenario, drama, massacre, internationalized our struggle and consolidated our situation, and the entire world knows about that. Hence, today we talk of the 2016 battalion and stuff. I hope it will definitely be funded as time goes by, but obviously, as I'm saying, the journey started in 2014, and we're still hoping for Good Samaritans.
Okay, so
because the truth will be out, because South Africa was just entertainment, but the truth is yet to come. So if Ashraf, I say, several people died from 1976 to 1977. There were a number of victims that were victims of what? The green car, the sniper that actually killed people at random, only if it was a sniper in Soweto. So yeah, I hope the truth will be out one day, because really we cannot all this year talk about either three families when so many families have lost their lives.
Okay, point made. By the way, talking about Winnie Mandela, we'll be chatting to Ivor Chikovitz. He's the producer of The Trials of Winnie Mandela, which has been flighting, I think, on Netflix, in fact. And we'll talk about that later on before we end the show. Mrs. Wake Mbuli, appreciate your time as always here on The National Pulse.
50 years later, Youth Month, The Voices.
What is needed is not just a readjustment in the details of the policy, but a change of policy altogether. I think that's what is needed. In other words, separate development is not a solution, it is a problem.
The system has done so many things and so much harm to my people that the people are no longer interested in having equal rights.
What I'm saying is that we need to believe as young people again, have that spirit again that the youth of 1976 had, that we can also bring about the change. We are the change that we should let us be the change that we want to see. Let us exercise our rights, voting. Let us exercise our rights.
Right, the Drakensberg return to the Mandela stage at the Joburg Theatre with the Drakensberg Boys Choir in the City 2026. That comes up from tomorrow to the 20th of June. This 4-day musical showcases promises a vibrant, genre-spanning celebration of community, heritage and global musical exchange. So on the Wednesday and the Thursday night, some of Gauteng's best school choirs will join the Drakensberg on stage. Then on Friday, the internationally acclaimed Minnesota Boys Choir from the USA, as well as the University of Joburg's choir, will join the Drakensberg for a special global collaboration of community and heritage. The Drakensberg Boys Choir Gala concert itself is on Saturday the 20th. It promises to be a spectacular closing to the festival itself, right? Now, you can attend by booking now. Go to the website www.dbchoir.com, dbchoir.com.
Tech Talk on the National Pulse.
Right, we have a feature. We talk around issues around tech every single week around this time. In the last few years, agriculture, interestingly enough, has become agri-tech, as technology has eased into everything from yield monitors to climate monitoring to soil sensors and irrigation. So let's find out more about just that, how tech has infiltrated traditional agriculture, and is it for the better? Lucas Molefe is the cybersecurity expert at ESET Southern Africa. Lucas, appreciate you joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much. Right. First, let's start with the reality. To what degree has agriculture, or has agriculture become agri-tech?
Yeah, agriculture has turned to agri-tech, right? So we most of the time think that cybersecurity is just about banks or tech companies. But today we look at agriculture becoming agri-tech. Now, based on some high percentages of 43%, based on actual Stellenbosch University, where they were actually saying that local adoption is something that is being happening now, where an agricultural sphere is becoming agri-tech, where things are becoming more about IoT devices, right? Whether, like you mentioned, to monitor the soil sensors, or even the actual livestock, tracking where they are and which area they are, or their health. So it is changing drastically because it's easier that way to monitor those things, I would believe.
I mean, interesting you say that because, historically one would think about agriculture as people who want to be close to the soil and away from technology. And this is a fusion of the two, right?
Yeah, we would think that immediately, but you must also realize and understand that gone are the days where everything is made manually. Farmers want sufficiency or efficiency because remember, at the end of the day, how we used to do things, whether you talk about big commercial retailers or big commercial farmers, they want to move things faster for themselves as well. How to track things faster, whether it is based on the data that they're tracking, if there's a change in how they do things. Because if you look at how things were being done, they didn't really need all the tech involved. They would just focus on manually checking, is it ripe or is it good enough? Is this farm good enough, or is even the livestock at a good condition? But we all know that because of technology, things are moving fast, that people just want to monitor things at a much faster pace.
Let's talk about some of the specifics, and then we'll talk about the cybersecurity, risks, right? Some of the specific technology that's being used in agriculture.
Okay, so when we talk about the specifics, we would say, an example, a sensor, right? A soil sensor that would be then to monitor the soil, right? How is it? Is it getting enough water? An example, right? Now, we move from there, we look at the livestock temperature where it is an attachment or a gadget where it's attached to a livestock. Because, like an example, I'm gonna make it also personal. Back in the day, my grandfather had sheep, right? Where whenever he needs to track his sheep, he needs to have a sheep shepherd, right? To go and monitor these things, okay? So by using these technology, you technically don't need the shepherd, but you still do. However, the shepherd will know the location of the stock where it is, right, of the livestock. Because sometimes by them walking around or even just having a time where they eat at a particular place, they can easily move to another place, right? And this then helps that when you have this gadget that is attached to either the ear or attached to either the leg of the actual livestock, you're able to know the location and the health of the livestock as well.
Okay. Let's then talk about the risks. I mean, you mentioned cybersecurity because as technological advancements advance, so advances those who want to actually hack into spaces and undermine systems. Tell me about that.
So hackers don't really want to try and focus on the high walls of major retailers, right? So they actually want to look at the actual back door. Okay, and in this sense, someone will think that a back door, that means, okay, easy way in. No, a back door would mean that there's an actual SME company with no firewall or even no IT department and an unpatched IoT or Internet of Things device. In this case, it would be a soil sensor or whatever the device is. Now, there's data involved there. By leaking or getting into that particular data or that particular IoT device, right? That becomes where they want to climb in. That's where they would actually look and find that, okay, if I, as an attacker, alter the sensor, right, of the truck or the sensor of that particular IoT device, that there comes a point where there's data poisoning and there's also data stealing. So that's when we talk about the weak link or the problem that comes or the risk in terms of cybersecurity. Because now that we depend on tech, no longer on people, we may actually depend so much on tech that the information that we're getting, right? The information we're getting can be wrong information or it can be right information. But all of this is dependent on tech. So the minute we depend on tech, that means if a person hacks it, a hacker hacks it or poisons that based on the data, that's a problem where it starts. That's where the risk always starts.
Okay, and therefore, I mean, just your last point, your call out to people listening in who may be battling with these same complex issues. What would be your advice to them?
So I would say the way forward would be making sure security must be covered on the entire chain, right? From the fork to the fork. Protecting your own parameters isn't enough just anymore by just having a partner that is unsecure. No, you need to make sure that large architect companies can actually focus on making sure that they update the patches as well. So when you look for products, right, it is very important that a person needs to make sure and get educated on how to support that particular product, right? Because what happens is that by simply getting an endpoint security product, it doesn't mean that it will patch the outdated system. So securing the whole supply chain is not just an IT issue, just everyone needs to be hands on deck by education, getting the right support, and understanding the product that you're actually buying. Because by saying that you're not going to spend money on IT team is the worst mistake, because that's how attacks start.
Point made indeed. Let's leave it at that. Lucas Molefe, a cybersecurity expert at ESET, ESET, Southern Africa. This is the National Pulse. Of course, it's a public holiday, so there's no news headlines. But what it means, we're going to get to more of your calls. Patrick, Matume, and many of the others, first-time callers as well. You can WhatsApp too. Text or voice note. Intabiseng will handle all of those things, and I look forward to engaging with you here on the National Pulse. However, sport comes up next.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, it's good news if you're driving back to Gauteng through Mpumalanga. The big crash at Vanderfontein has been cleared. There was a really big backlog there between Belfast and Vanderfontein earlier, but it's out of the way, and that traffic's on the move again. Just staying in that area, there are some roadworks once you get past Vanderfontein, coming into Middelburg, at least 2 construction zones there. And if you're west of Mbombela, there's about 3 construction zones on Schoeman's Kloof between the Leidenburg R36 exit and Montrose. So factor in some queue time there. Probably the biggest clog up that we have with returning long weekend traffic remains the run through the Moy River, just 1 lane open from Nottingham Road up towards Moy River Plaza. You effectively come from 3 lanes into 1. That with the volume, which has dropped off to about 800 vehicles an hour from 1,000 vehicles now a little while ago. But it is very busy and lengthy queues of vehicle and truck traffic in that area. Cape Town this afternoon looks okay if you're coming back inbound through the Huguenot Tunnel. That is clear. The N2 has been moving nicely this afternoon. Still no problems reported there. Botrafia, Gohoek past Grabo, over Sir Larry's Pass, looking good into Cape Town as well. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Khapele.
All right, what's top of the agenda with our very own Minister of Sport, to me?
Well, starting off with football this hour, where 2-time champions France will get their World Cup campaign underway against Senegal in what will be a repeat of the 2002 tournament. Le Bleu are considered favourites, boasting one of the top sides at the World Cup, including players like Kylian Mbappe, Ousmane Dembele and Michael Olise, amongst others. For the Lions of Teranga, they'll be competing at the global showpiece without their supporters, as they were not able to travel to follow their team due to the tight immigration restrictions imposed by co-host the United States. However, Senegal says this will not stop them from giving their best at the global showpiece. So looking forward to this one, with kickoff being at 9 p.m. Meanwhile, DR Congo head coach Sebastian says that his team is determined to put on a good showing as they begin their first World Cup campaign since 1974 against Portugal in Houston. Tomorrow, kickoff at 7 p.m. The Leopards' preparations were disrupted by an Ebola outbreak back home, forcing them into a 21-day quarantine before relocating their training camp to Belgium. They drew goalless with Denmark and 2-1 to chill in warm-up matches. But Coach Sebastian praised their players' resilience. DR Congo qualified via the playoffs with a 1-0 extra time win over Jamaica in March. And Portugal, on the other hand, are unbeaten in 2026 under Roberto Martinez, arriving in strong form after victories over Chile and Nigeria. Bringing it back home, Mamelodi Sundowns have signed forward Antonio van Veek from Austrian outfit SV Red in a deal reported to be just over 1 million euros. The 24-year-old returns to South Africa after a spell in Europe, with his transfer marking the most expensive sale that the Austrian side has ever done in their history. Now, the forward's arrival adds depth to Sundowns' attacking unit as the reigning South African champions continue to reinforce their squad ahead of domestic and continental campaigns where expectations remain high. In netball, Free State Crinum's coach Martha Muswatle Sam says that she is happy that her players embraced the team's mandate and also delivered on expectations to secure the 2026 Telkom Netball League title. Now, the Crinums dethroned defending champions, the Gauteng Fireballs, with a commanding 46-32 victory in the final at the Rembrandt Hall in Pretoria last night. And Muswatle says that it was crucial for the team to refine its strategy after falling short in the 2025 campaign. In terms of rugby, Stormers fullback Warwick Holland will line up against his Springbok teammates in Gqeberha on Saturday after accepting an invitation to represent the Barbarians. Holland, capped 11 times for South Africa, says that wearing the famous black and white jersey is special and a dream opportunity to play alongside world-class stars. Now, the 31-year-old expects a stern test against the world champions, but insists that the Barbarians are expected to make the contest competitive despite limited preparations time. He also praised coaches Scott Robinson and Felipe for their open and creative approach. Halan says that he wants to make his first Barbarians experience memorable while embracing the team's philosophy of enjoyment and attacking rugby. Finally, in tennis, Serena Williams will play at Wimbledon for the first time since 2022. This is after the American legend was given a wild card to play the doubles event with her sister Venus. Now, Williams made a sensational return to tennis last week when she won her first round doubles match at Queen's Club with partner Victoria Mboko. The 44-year-old had not played professional tennis for 4 years after saying that she was evolving away from the sport following the 2022 US Open. Definitely looking forward to that one. With that said, it is a wrap from my side.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that. To me, let's say Venus Williams and Serena back as a duo, but clearly expectations must be lower. I know they're tall, but they must lower their expectations. You agree?
Lava breaks through once more.
They are relentless in their pursuit of a maiden World Cup title. They are carried by the nation, and they are unbreakable. Get behind Laura Wolfhard and her team as they compete in the 2026 ICC Women's T20 World Cup in England and Wales from 12 June to 15 July. Watch Shabneen Ismail, Marizan Cup, Ayabonga Kaka and company raise the game to new heights. Find out all you need to know at cricket.coza.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Ron, we'll get to your calls. In fact, we'll get to your calls now. Let me tell you what else is coming up. So there's a fascinating story around Winnie Mandela and the trials of Winnie Mandela with the executive producer Ivor Achikowicz. We're going to talk to him about that just now. But before we get to all of that, here's some thoughts from you, okay? Here's a comment. Afternoon, Ashraf. I'm disenchanted at Mzwaki Mbuli's analytical skills. Expected him to even well articulate himself, but unfortunately a berry doesn't rip according to the monkey's wish. On a lighter note, was eagerly anticipating him to rhyme with your name. Well, didn't happen this time. I get what you're saying, and I heard what he said, but at least you know what he's thinking right now. And we have this cross-section of people there. I see there's been some comments about some form of rioting in the Sherwood Hall area. Sherwood, that is in Durban. Remember, that's been the very center of immigrants being sent back home to Malawi. But let's see if we can get an update on that. There's further comments. In fact, we'll get via WhatsApp. Let's play that.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Dumelo Post Masbek. Ashraf, the government needs to stop specify or targeting South Africans whom are only between the ages of 18 and 35 years. Why am I saying that, Ashraf? There are those who used to fall within that age bracket, and they were failed by this same government, including myself. Others are still unemployed. Others, they had business proposals when they fell within that age bracket, and they were failed by the state. So now, because of they have surpassed that age of 35 years, what happens to them? What happens to them, Ashraf? It's Tumelo from Postmasbek. Good evening.
Well, I mean, that is it, isn't it? You know, we talk about a missing middle in other cases. We're having too many young people falling through the cracks. And if we don't sell them a dream for the future and they don't believe in that dream through the South African processes, then they become increasingly disillusioned. And remember, those young people are potential parents and grandparents one day. So, you know, there's a disconnect that is a very serious disconnect. And you do wonder, of all the things we talk about, why is it we haven't put that at the very top of the agenda? It should be like priority number one of many priorities. Ashraf, you ask why political parties use Youth Day to criticize each other. What do you expect from these tyrants? There's a fine line between a politician, no matter what color, and a racist and a rapist. I'm not too sure. I really, Jim, no. How do you say that? I really think that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I think you're wrong in saying that. But I can be critical of politicians. But to suggest what you're suggesting is just out of order, really. Right, let's see if we've got more WhatsApp comments. There are the problem with South Africa is we don't travel. Okay, I think I've read that before. There's another one. Here's one.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Ilim Makwele from Rotterdam. Ashraf, it doesn't matter how we fix South Africa. The previous caller who spoke anonymously with regard to us fixing South Africa, whether I said it sarcastically, ironically, it doesn't matter. We'll fix it the way we fixed it when we fought against apartheid. What is important is that South Africa must benefit the people of South Africa. The people of South Africa must be the beneficiaries of the resources of this country. In terms of June 16 must be a day to help youth to recalibrate themselves into the new paths of success. Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, and I hear all you're saying, and I'm expecting someone to respond to that. Here's another comment.
Afternoon, SAFM. This is Meze in Cape Town. SAFM, you know, every time South Africans are talking about migrants, the people always come with studies that people have been moving and all that. That doesn't matter. South African citizens should be allowed to say who they want in their own country. These people are not living in the suburbs. They're not living in the affluent areas. They're living with us in the townships. We got every right to say we don't want them in our communities because they bring drugs and our communities are dirty. Come to Kailicha, Cape Town. Go to Kailicha Mall. You will see them. They are selling there on top of selling phones, stolen phones and all that. You cannot be saying that. And these people are not even legal in South Africa. They must go home.
Okay, I hear you. And I think your point is well taken in the context of all the issues we've been talking about. All I am saying is when we talk about illegality and selling things that are illegal, you could apply the same principle to South Africans who are doing the same thing, even though they are in the country legally, legitimately. It doesn't mean they're not committing acts of illegality. Patrick in Witbank, hi.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah,
you know what?
Yep.
I don't want to waste your time. I'm happy because you actually pressed... I'm sorry about running. I'm a bit tired. You were pressing Joachim Bullitt up until he managed to say what I think he was hiding to say. But I think from where I'm standing, the problem is this. We have old system that is actually trying to solve the youth problems. Old system meaning that starting from you've been working for radio for such a long time. You go to parliament. We've got old folks who are still holding on, who want to enrich themselves. We have people who resonate very well with 1976. some of them are leading political parties. Instead of them teaching youth of South Africa how to improve their lives, they are more interested into enriching themselves. Thanks, Ashraf.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, but I mean, just hold it, Patrick. You see, yes, I mean, some of us are older. I'm certainly old. I get that. But there's a difference between old and holding on to things versus old with experience and wanting to uplift society. I absolutely want, and you know this, I want to live in a champion nation. I want us to be champions at everything we do. For that to happen, absolutely, we have to lift the youth of our country. We have to lift them and give them spaces. We have to do that. But it's not just giving a space for the sake of it. It's empowering and skilling people so they don't go to a World Cup and lose a game and say they're useless and you fire the coach the next day. That's not what I'm talking about. Making sure that they're ready, for example, like an 18-year-old Moroccan, if you get my point. So in the same way, we have to create the opportunities on a daily basis. And I agree with that. Not sentimental, on a daily basis to ensure that the youth of South Africa and the wise old heads must merge into one force, then we're much stronger. If that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, Asha. But you know what? One last thing.
Yeah.
Let me just take, I'm forced to mention the political party. Let's say now, Julius Malema is in a good position of understanding the dynamics of South African politics. He resonates very well with 1976. He is in a better position of uplifting the youth of South Africa. Instead, he's fighting for who? For the foreigners. Thank you, Ashraf. Bye-bye.
So who are you talking about? I missed that point. Who are you referring to? Fighting for the foreigners?
Get me in trouble, Ashraf. Let's talk another day. I can see you are out of time. Thanks, bye.
But you were out of breath when we started. Thank you very much. Thanks, Patrick. Enjoy the conversation anyway. Right. Matome, we've got you now on the line with from Tembisa. Hi, Matome.
Ashraf, how are you?
I'm very good indeed. What's your point?
Well, my point is that I want to comment about June 16, 1976.
Go for it, yeah.
When the uprising took place in 1976, on the 16th of June, I was an infant of only 11 months. In fact, I was born in 5 July 1975. I was a baby of 11 months at that time.
Okay, right.
Yeah. But when I started schooling in 1972, doing Set A, the most spoken word, it was Black Power. I asked myself, what was this power? Until I knew what they really talked about. Then now I am a man of 51 years old. That's my point, my man.
All right. You now understand it better. Thank you for that, Matume. Right, there's more calls. And listen, on this day, you could be in South Africa, big city, small dorpie. I mean, I always say when you call in, you actually also become the ambassador for your town. So like we get to Eddie from Woodendals just now. And then when he does, or the caller from Harry Smith, you put your little town or your big city on the map. So wherever you are in the world, in the country, you could be in the world, you could be in the USA now or Mexico ahead of some World Cup matches, which is like lunchtime, I think thereabouts. You could be. Let's get to some of the other thoughts. In fact, we'll get to Tsokolo right after this.
50 years later, Youth Month, the voices.
We have experienced June 16th to some extent and remembering June 16th every year. The generation that is to come, they need to know what June 16th means. So it's up to us to actually, educate them about it so that they understand the importance of it and that this is the reason why we are here today. And because of where we are now, for me personally, it changes my life completely. So I like it when on that day we are dressed in school uniforms. I think I don't want my kids to look at it as a sad day. It's a day to remember. It's our history. It is also our future.
Different generations, different experiences. One South Africa, 50 years later, only on SAfm, leading the conversations that move us. SAfm supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAfm, leading the conversation. Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, still time for you to send out a couple of WhatsApp comments if you like, voice notes or text messages. You can do that, or you can tweet as well. By the way, in fact, talking about tweeting, let me see. Oliver Math has tweeted a piece that Oliver's put together, saying 58.1% of youth neither working, studying, nor in training. That's nearly half a generation shut out of opportunity. And then wrote a piece about it, which I've just shared. In fact, I'm just reposted it on Twitter. Just check it out. Okay, we've got let's get to Harry Smith then. Tsokolo, hi, you live? Go for it.
How are you, Azar?
Yeah, how are you? Good.
Good, man. I don't know. We must encourage these kids to go and to go to school instead of telling them about your system, because some of they were not even born by then, so they don't know nothing. I was
but you really think they don't know nothing? I don't know if they don't know nothing. They're learning in school,
yeah,
by the way. They
no,
do learn in school.
That's what I was coming on that point. The only thing that they will do, they will learn that at school. That is going to be a history to them. So to say we cannot compare that youth and this current youth we are having now. So obviously, I think it's just a waste of time. The only thing that we must encourage the youth of today to go to school. Then they will learn that at school what happened by then. Because really, I was hearing some people, they say this youth of today, they can't act or they can't celebrate. How can they celebrate because they don't know, they were not there?
Okay.
The only thing that they know today is only they were not there. It was tough by then.
Okay.
I don't think it's nice for them to
Okay, I think you made your point. I think they must not just go to school; they must learn the right things. Because one thing is learning about the past. They must be skilled, and we must accelerate that skill transfer ASAP. That's what I think. So, Kolo, thanks for that. Eddie in Wendendalsrus, you now live. Go for it, Eddie.
Much, my brother. I hope you're okay.
I'm very good.
Yeah, Ashraf. It's very simple. Every time that you have a chat with the minister or any deputy minister of every department, just pose this question: what is the youth development program in your department? I think that will assist.
I agree with you.
So that they can be able to pronounce what is it that they are doing for young people. Even at municipal level, once you get whether the mayor or any one MMCs, just ask them that question. It's important that we incubate small business by young people, so that because once you have incubated it, that person will go out, feeling empowered and go back in the township and and restore whatever economic development that he wants to do in terms of Ekasi township development. Those are the questions that we need to ask. And Ashraf, can I challenge you?
Yes, go ahead.
We are about to establish a youth and community center. Yeah. Between Ordinal Stress and Belco.
Right.
And I would like you guys to come and broadcast from here.
All right. So that decision is made by program management and not by me, right?
Yeah,
but
you're
but
I'm giving it to you.
Well, why don't you drop me an email? Drop me an email if you can, right?
I'll do that.
Do that, and then we'll take it up from there. We'll do that.
Thank you very much.
But as far as your initial point, I think you're right. We could make you the Minister of Youth Affairs on that basis only. I think it's an important point. Ask everybody, what's your youth development plan? Eddie, I completely concur with you. We have to put it on the agenda 365 days a year, not one day in a year. Absolutely. Thanks for that, Eddie. Right, Dintwe, you're in Tabanchu, putting your town on the map. Go for it, Dintwe. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf, and I'm good. I hope you are good.
I'm very good indeed, thank you.
No, what I want to say is that June 16, 1976, I was doing my Form 5. Now they are saying it's grade 12. And in Itsuse, in Lichtenberg, Ditsowater, poorest municipality in the whole country, I was there. So the thing is, the youth of 1976, they put us on the map, and the disappointment that we are having today is the leaders that are leading this country that have soiled what the youth of 1976 did, because there are no development at all for the youth of today. That's what I wanted to say. But we are speaking as leaders today, but there's nothing on the ground that we are doing for the youth. We are just talking and talking and talking.
We are just
no
talking.
action to reduce the 46 or the 48 unemployment that we have in the country for the youth. Thank you, Asha.
I get that. Well, I think you may not be wrong about what is the genuine action plan. Why is it a crisis or not? And if it's a crisis, are we acting accordingly? You know the way you have when you have a flood, for example, and you have this disaster, and then before you know it, government gets involved, and then you heard gift to the givers are involved because they come to support, and others because it's a crisis that needs urgent attention. Is the youth unemployment rate a crisis or not? If it's a crisis, are we handling it as a crisis or is it an afterthought? Just something to think about. So Jen saying, Ashraf, stats show young women have higher unemployment than men. That means young women in South Africa have an employment rate more than 60%. How devastating to think of that, from Jen in Cape Town. Okay, there's more like that. I'll tell you what. Let me pick out a few more as we get to the last few minutes of the show. So, I mean, maybe this is the most obvious thing, isn't it?
Afternoon, Ashraf. This is Ilim Makwele from Rotterdam. Ashraf, it doesn't matter how we fix South Africa. The previous caller who spoke anonymously with regard to us fixing South Africa, whether I said it sarcastically, ironically, it doesn't matter. We'll fix it the way we fixed it when we fought against apartheid. What is important is that South Africa must benefit the people of South Africa. The people of South Africa must be the beneficiaries of the resources of this country. In terms of June 16 must be a day to help youth to recalibrate themselves into the new paths of success. Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, got that. But you know what? I mean, I hear you. There's nothing wrong in what you said. It must benefit. Listen, if services don't benefit the people that live in that country, then the country is undermined and the people are undermined, and that's not acceptable. That's not sustainable. Let's just end on the issue of Youth Day, because I mean, I said this at the beginning of the show, and I'll say it again. Youth Day can't be. Yes, Youth Day must reflect on what happened on June 16, 1976, because that's the catalyst. But it can't be dwelling on June 16, 1976. 50 years later, Youth Day must be a catalyst for something even greater. And my challenge to all of us is, can we champion youth on Youth Day and beyond? Champion youth for 365 days a year. And how do we do that? We have to create every opportunity for them. Talk to them, engage them, listen to them, in fact, learn from them as well, and try and create spaces, open up spaces for them of opportunity, which you have within your network. Ensure that they don't feel left out. Give them hope. Listen to their vision. Try and map out the vision if they need your advice to the point that they realize it. And then ensure that they do get a seat at the table, a table that they choose, not your table, their table that they choose. And the reality is this, we must understand this. Youth are not just our future, youth are our present. And if we understand that part, they're the present and the future, our investment in terms of resources, time and attention has got to be on South Africa's youth. They're that important. Champion our youth. Right, that's the show on this Youth Day. Great to engage with you all throughout. We'll do it again tomorrow, 3 to 6. Set your alarms now. Hope you're going to watch football. I certainly will be watching France-Senegal tonight at 9 p.m. Not the other games, 3 o'clock in the morning, although it's Algeria-Argentina. I know that. That's too early. But we'll talk about it tomorrow. Right now, it's time for the news at 6 with Greg.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Ramaphosa speaks on anti-immigrant protests and the Williams sisters to return to Wimbledon. Good evening. President Cyril Ramaphosa warned South Africans not to be misled by people who want to cause instability